This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Patterson and Michael Remis.
Hey now, welcome to another Monday edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Michael Remis here in the host chair for Hustler, who was away on the weekend in Kansas City taking the Chiefs loss, 0-2 start. I'm sure he'll have lots to say about that when he comes back. Pleased to be joined in a second by Connor Hrabchak, who's been doing some great work for us this weekend. Check out WST Sunday Live on the channel and the Bomber Report, which came out this morning. But plenty to get to. It's officially hockey season, training camp week. The Jets will be doing their medicals, but Wednesday on the ice. Thursday, we will be at Hockey for All Center. Thursday, Friday. And then Saturday, we will do a special show from FanFest. So make sure you're coming out and saying hi to us there. The Prospects Tournament started on Saturday, ended yesterday. The Jets going 2-0 with some dramatic wins. We'll be touching on that later today. The weekend did get started off with a Bombers loss. That's 3 in a row, 3 losses in a row. They're now at 6-7, and in a real dogfight here for the playoffs with some pretty serious questions at quarterback. So we're going to touch on all that. As I said, the Jets training camp starting this week, the Prospects Tournament, and the Bombers. I'm sure we'll sprinkle in some other topics. NFL Week 2. 2 games tonight. The doubleheader Monday nighter, which I'm a big fan of. And baseball, race to the end of the postseason. We're all following the Blue Jays here as well. So some great guests coming up. Taylor Allen was in Hamilton for the Bombers, lost in the dressing room after asking the questions before as well. Had this story about Kenny Lawler, which we discussed on Friday. Really looking forward to talking with Taylor Allen about that of the Winnipeg Free Press, and also Mike McIntyre of the Winnipeg Free Press. He had a busy morning at the golf course talking with Connor Hrabchak and Josh Morrissey. And Mike's got his column on the Prospects camp. We'll touch on that. And, the training camp mailbag. A lot of questions, a lot of storylines coming in as we can finally open the book on the Winnipeg Jets 2025-26 season, the 15th training camp in franchise history. Since moving to Winnipeg. And they will be wearing the special commemorative logo on the jersey and at center ice this season. And if we have time, I caught up with former NHLer Drew Shore. He's now an agent. He's got a podcast just about, if this time of year, training camp brings back memories for him. Well, let's get it started. The guy's been pretty busy this weekend. Busy this morning. He, too, was at the golf course with his microphone in there, hearing from Connor Hrabchak and Josh Morrissey. Connor Hrabchak went at WST Sunday Live, WST Bomber Report, WST Jets reporter. Connor, what's going on? Thanks for joining me today. Looking forward to chopping it up here with you over the next couple days here with Hustler Away.
All week long. Yeah, me and you, Remo. It's going to be a blast. Thanks for having me. And this is like the best week. It's training camp week. I'm so fired up. FanFest this weekend. NFL's fully underway. The Bombers, maybe we'll touch on them a little bit later in terms of the good that's happening this week. But happy to be here with some hockey to talk about with the Prospect Showdown this past weekend.
Yeah, Connor, how was the sports highlight of your weekend? We had the Bomber game Friday. I don't know if you're a college football guy. Saturday, we had Jets, Montreal. I know full house there in Montreal, which is crazy. Jets, Ottawa, Sunday. NFL. I don't know if you stayed up. You stayed up for the boxing fight on Netflix. I was like ready to pack it in. I don't think it ended until like 1 a.m. or something. So I watched that as well. So there were a lot of sports going on. If anything stood out to you.
Yeah, I do want to start. I don't know if it was the highlight of my sports viewing weekend, but the sold out Bell Center crowd, cheering every time Ivan Demidov touched the puck, and the Jets kind of weathering that storm was really, really cool to me. Dom DiVincentis made 38 saves and 38 quality saves in that game. Like it was a barrage at times, and the Canadians were really feeding off of the energy that the Bell Center was giving them. So that was a really cool start to the weekend on Saturday night there. And then obviously the NFL slate. I'm a 49ers fan, so I saw Mac Jones lead my team to victory. But it was an entertaining slate. I mean, that Giants-Cowboys game was incredible going into overtime. The Broncos and Colts game with, shades of the Saskatchewan Roughriders with a penalty on a missed field goal, and then they get another chance, and the Colts end up winning that one. The Sunday Nighter, I'm sure Vikings fans want to forget about that one. But yeah, it was a full weekend of sports, and the Jets with 2 wins in the Prospect Showdown. There was a lot to watch, and I had a good weekend taking it all in.
Yeah, I feel like traditionally the Jets prospect tournaments haven't been great for them historically, but a lot of standouts. Dominic DiVincentis, you mentioned him on Saturday, 38 saves versus Montreal. Alex Worthington, 36 saves on 38 shots yesterday against Ottawa. He's a player who may start in the ECHL, but certainly impressed. And Danny Zhilkin had a big 2 goals against Montreal. Colby Barlow had a goal and assist against Montreal. What stood out to you there from the Jets? 2 games on Saturday and Sunday.
How about that goal from Chase Yoder, undressing David Reinbacher to tie the game as the Jets go bang bang to silence the Bell Center crowd? I was like, okay, this is getting really interesting here. It was looking rough there at the start of that Montreal game because they were feeding off the crowd. They were super physical. Kieran Walton as well. We should mention him. He left that Montreal game after taking a hard hit and didn't return to that game and then didn't play in the game Sunday as well. So we'll wait and hear an update on Kieran Walton, who left the game with an upper body injury. But I think the standout for me is obviously the goaltending. I mean, DiVincentis and Worthington in back-to-back nights. The Jets posted their stats, a combined .936 save percentage, 73 saves, and they got the 2 wins. But Danny Zhilkin, I mean, this is a guy that over his 2 seasons with the Manitoba Moose has 5 goals combined, scored 2 on Saturday night, and played incredible in the Sunday game as well, setting up some goals too. So Danny Zhilkin was really, really impressive to me. It was nice to see Colby Barlow get on the score sheet after having a goal waved off. That was very obviously should be waved off in the Saturday game. Elias Salamonson was skating around looking good on the back end. Braden Yeager, I thought, had some moments as well. And Chase Yoder, just out of nowhere, undresses a top 5 pick and one of the best defensive prospects in hockey with an unbelievable toe drag and then dekes out the goalie as well. That was the highlight of the weekend for me, was that Chase Yoder goal, undrafted player who just, again, undressed a player who was drafted in the top 5 as a right shot defenseman, David Reinbacher. So pretty impressive weekend for the Winnipeg Jets and a lot of prospects that stood out in a good way.
Yeah, Chase Yoder, Providence college free agent, similar to, Brandon Tanev, Parker Ford. Yeah. So certainly a guy, if you hadn't heard of him now, his toe drag highlight reel goal made the rounds on Saturday, and that's a guy maybe we'll have some more eyes on him when it comes to training camp. You mentioned Yeager and Elias Salmonson. It didn't stand out, but were certainly steady. Fabian Wagner scored the OT winner yesterday against Ottawa, and Colby Barlow, he's had some battles with training camp where, what was it, a couple of years ago where he didn't play, he was sick, and but it feels like this year he's going to be ready to come in 100%, and I'm curious to see what he's going to be able to do this season.
Yeah, and he's one of those players that's making their leap to the first pro season of their career, right? Colby Barlow is going to be on the Manitoba Moose this year, or the Winnipeg Jets if he makes it straight out of camp. But along with Braden Yeager, Jacob Julian, these are players that are making that first year pro leap. And going into their first full pro season, whether it be with the Manitoba Moose or the Winnipeg Jets. And we actually spoke to Braden Yeager at one of the informal skates before this prospect showdown team left for Montreal. And he has a great attitude heading into training camp. He wants to make the NHL. He said he knows the situation in front of him. The Jets have a lot of great centers and a lot of great forwards, but his mindset is still to make the NHL. And I'm sure all of these players are going in with that attitude, even though it's highly likely that they'll be sent down to the Manitoba Moose and play out a full season down in the AHL, which can be good for their development. So their heads are in the right space, if you will, that they want to make the Winnipeg Jets right out of training camp as they prepare for their first pro season. And I'm excited to see. I think the Manitoba Moose are going to be much better this year. I mean, 31st in the AHL last year. It's tough to get worse, but I do think like the free agent signings that they made in the offseason, the pro players that they're getting, the prospects that they're getting, I think the Manitoba Moose are not only going to be better this year, I think they're also going to be a fun watch. So looking to get out to more Moose games this year as well, as they have some young prospects making the pro leap.
Yeah, one player looking to make a leap this year, Nikita Chibrikov, played 30 games with the Moose. He got into a couple with the Jets. He's almost a point per game player in the NHL, Connor. 4 points in 5 career games. It was 3 of those in 4 last year. Coming back from a knee injury, said he wanted to participate in the Prospects tournament in Montreal. He is only 22 years old, turning 23 in February. You see anything out of Chibrikov? And is that another player who's battling for one of those bottom roster spots on the Winnipeg Jets?
I think so. I truly think that the door is open for him to knock down the door, if you will, and make a roster spot on this Winnipeg Jets team. And he is a player, Remis, that I was looking at kind of under a microscope this past weekend, even though it is a prospect showdown. But he's coming off that major knee injury last season with the Manitoba Moose. It cut his season short. I'm sure he would have played maybe more games down the stretch with the Winnipeg Jets had he not injured his knee. So I was looking at him to see, does he have that explosiveness? Does he have that short area burst? How is he looking in the skating department? Because he can be a player that is fearless in the corners and is going and battling for pucks and has that short area burst and can win a lot of puck battles for your team. Coming off of a major knee injury is a whole nother battle. That's a whole nother hill that he had to climb this season. So he was rehabbing it. This was his first, game action coming off of that major knee injury. I thought he looked good, and it'll be interesting to see how he looks at training camp as well. And I know people are excited about Nikita Chibrikov, as they should be. And like I just said, there is an opportunity for him to knock the door down and make the Winnipeg Jets. But coming off of that major knee injury, I personally wouldn't be shocked if the Jets organization views him as a guy that's destined for the Moose, at least for the start of the season, as he maybe knocks off a bit of the rust with that knee injury and having gone through a rehab process in the offseason. I don't know what you saw at Chibrikov or what you think about his chances, Remis, but that's how I see it.
Yeah, I think we've seen historically in the past, it's real tough for, a young player like that who's able to be sent down without waivers, really crack the Jets roster. They would have to come in and have some kind of standout camp where you're really turning heads. And even then, we've seen that, the easy option is to send them down. But, once you go down, you get your feet under, you get a game, get some games in. You never know what can happen. Injuries, play, any reason could bring a call up. So I think it's always important to be ready. I think it's fun to talk about prospects here. We just had the prospect tournament. We want to look ahead to the future. But what we've seen with the Jets in the past is they're going to go with veteran guys, who are tougher to send down. I am interested about the defense. They seem to have so many defensemen. How is that going to shake out? And just looking at, the players from the prospects camp who are headed to main camp. We talked about the goalies, DiVincentis and Worthington. Defenseman, Salamonson, who's certainly behind a number of veteran defensemen in camp. He's got something to prove. Edison Engel, who Danny Zhilkin, Wagner, Barlow, Chibrikov, Yeager, Julian, Cloutier, Walton, Kevin He, who we haven't really mentioned here. Usually the guy with the fastest motor out there. He's going to look to make an
Yeah.
impression. And Owen Martin, Manitoban, who was just drafted by the Winnipeg Jets this past summer. And you did mention Kieran Walton was hurt versus Ottawa. So that's tying the bow there on prospects tournament. And now we look ahead to main camp. Any other final thoughts that we didn't mention about the Winnipeg Jets prospect?
Yeah, you mentioned Elias Salamonson there, and I do want to bring him up because he, to me, falls under the same camp as Nikita Chibrikov, where Jets fans should be excited for Elias Salamonson, and I think he's going to be a big part of the future of this team. But this season, the odds are so stacked against him to make the Winnipeg Jets that I just don't see it happening. Obviously, injuries throughout the season, Salamonson will likely be the first call up and be that guy that gets inserted into the lineup in a depth role. But he just played his first pro season with the Manitoba Moose. And while it was successful, they were the 31st ranked team. And I'm not pinning that on Elias Salamonson, but I'm sure the Jets and the Jets organization want him to play some meaningful AHL games and be in a winning culture before he comes up to the Winnipeg Jets. And the biggest thing for him being stacked against it this year is just the contracts. I mean, the Jets have 9 NHL defensemen under contract that aren't eligible for waivers. Like Ville Heinola, we've been saying on the past 2 WST Sunday Lives, is destined for waivers, and it just kind of feels like a ticking time bomb as to when he actually does hit the waiver wire. And even then, if Elias Salamonson looks so good in camp that he pushes for a role and wins a role, then the Jets have to put another defenseman on waivers or trade another defenseman. So I just think the Jets are a team that they're going to go in with their 8 defensemen that are under contract right now. They're going to give Elias Salamonson a huge opportunity and huge role with the Moose. And while I know people are excited, and they should be, don't be shocked if Elias Salamonson starts the season and maybe even plays the full season with the Moose yet again.
Yeah, I think that is, looking ahead to training camp, that is one of the things to watch. Neil Pionk, Josh Morrissey, Dylan Sandberg, Dylan DeMello, that's 4. Luke Shen, Colin Miller, 6. Logan Stanley, Hayden Fleury, 7 and 8. And then going down, just looking at the, I want to say cap friendly, but no, it's Puckpedia now. The non-roster defense, Alphonse Frey and Ville Heinola, that is 9 and 10. And then Cale Clegg, who they signed, he's on a 2-way. Tyrell Bowers on a 2-way. So that's a couple more. And who do they have? Alphonse Frey in there, as he wasn't there.
No, he wasn't.
So he's a ways away. So they have some serious depth here on Puckpedia. But yeah, going to be tough. And Ville Heinola, former first-round pick, he's 24 years old, hasn't been able to find a regular spot in the lineup. Is it going to end the training camp with him being put on waivers? Something to see. Connor, you were at the golf course today talking to a couple Jets, Josh Morrissey, Connor Hellebuyck. I'll go in depth more with Mike McIntyre later, but anything you could take away from talking to the players?
Yeah, it was the first time for me personally hearing from Josh Morrissey since he went to that Team Canada orientation camp. And I thought Murat Atesh from The Athletic, who will be on the program this week, I thought he asked him a great question, how, Josh Morrissey made Team Canada, but yet he's in kind of a unique position where he's still hungry to make it again because he wasn't playing in that final game because he got sick the day of the game, which is just an unbelievable bad break for such a talented player. So to hear from him on that and hear how motivated he is to get back to that level, make Team Canada again, and represent his country at the Olympics, he looks like and sounds like he's very, very motivated heading into this year's training camp. Connor Hellebuyck, fresh off the media tour, answered a lot of questions in Vegas and answered a lot of questions in our scrum as well. But you could tell, he spent his whole weekend answering questions about his MVP and the shortcomings in the playoffs and going into this season and all of those things. So not much to take away from Connor Hellebuyck's availability. He's excited for camp. He's excited. He likes the depth of the roster as well. But the biggest thing for me to take away was Josh Morrissey talking about how motivated he is at the start of the season to make Team Canada once again.
Yeah, Josh Morrissey's really elevated himself to a top 5 defenseman in the NHL, made Team Canada, but still hungry. And it is, of course, the Olympics, a real international hockey tournament, a real one with more than 4 countries. So the hockey was so exciting at the Four Nations, But I'm very pumped up for Olympic hockey to be back, and that's something we're going to be counting down to and probably talking about all year, because you look at the schedule, and it is crazy, the number of games in there, especially that March schedule. They do have the break in February, and again, it's going to come up all year, looking ahead who's going to make the team, who's not. I know Mark Scheifele, a name under consideration as well. You mentioned Connor Hellebuyck. He discussed his experience at the media tour in Vegas.
Honestly, those were long days. It was a lot of media, and there was a lot of questions and a lot of similar questions over and over again. But I had fun. I made it as good as I could.
Forgive me for going to a similar route, but I think one of the things you've been asked about a lot is lessons coming out of that playoffs heading into the season, repeating on Hart Trophy form. What, if you could distill it at this point, you've answered it a bunch, what are you focusing on to help take your game to that next level?
At this point, I'm not overthinking anything. I know the stuff that I want to work on, and I'm not in any rush to get there. You put one piece together at a time, and you put your best foot forward every single day, and you continue to build something magical. So I'm going to wipe all expectations of what happened last year and just go in with an open mind and continue to build my game the way I want to build it.
There's Connor Hellebuyck. I don't know if it's possible to build on and improve on what he did last year in an MVP Hart Trophy season, a Vezina Trophy winner, but he's certainly going to try, Connor.
Yeah, it's so funny to hear about how Connor Hellebuyck's, building in the offseason and trying to get better at all these things. Like, he just won the MVP. I'm with you on that. I don't know where there's really room for improvement for Connor Hellebuyck, obviously in the playoffs. I mean, that's where it starts and ends with the Connor Hellebuyck discourse. But as for the regular season, he just is coming off the MVP, back-to-back Vezinas, his third Vezina of his career. Connor Hellebuyck is as sure of a thing to repeat and be another elite goaltender going into this season. And then the playoffs is a big thing. I mean, the first round against St. Louis obviously wasn't his best hockey, was in the middle 800s in terms of save percentage. Better against Dallas, but something that'll definitely be a talking point once we get closer to the postseason if the Jets are going to make it.
Yeah, one other thing for the Jets that's tough going to this training camp, you're coming off a season where you're the President's Trophy winner, franchise records, such a great season. But now you're starting fresh, starting from zero, and they kind of did this in the past where you had that great 2018 where you went to the Western Conference Final, then have to start over. Again, Connor Hellebuyck was asked about the experience they have and, being able, just going into training camp and having that fresh start going into a new season after having such a great year last year.
Yeah, experience plays everything, really. My path from now to getting in season ready is, just laid out ahead of me. I know exactly what I need to do and how to get there. And, just the stress on the mind, that's what the experience kind of takes away. I'm less stressed now, and I'm very focused and motivated for what I've already done before. So I just got to continue to fall back into that line and keep putting my best foot forward, really.
A few guys left, a few new faces, but what's your take on, I guess, the state of your hockey team going into this new season?
I'm excited. We got some new faces and some guys that are ready to build on what we did last year. So I'm really looking forward to the future here, and one day at a time, really one day at a time.
One day at a time, there it is from Connor Hellebuyck and the Winnipeg Jets. Looking forward to seeing them on the ice Thursday at Hockey for All Center. But Connor, we haven't touched on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers losing on Friday, the Hamilton Ticats. That is 3 straight losses, and we talked so much going in about protecting the ball, not turning it over, and I think the defense has really kept them in. The last 3 games played so well, but when you're throwing interceptions, giving the opposition short fields, they're going to make you pay. And that was the story again on Friday. Chris Streveler, 2 interceptions, almost had a third, struggled moving the ball downfield. And, they gave Bo Levi short fields, and Greg Bell ran all over them for 137 yards. So there they are, 6-7, and now it is a battle for the West playoffs with Edmonton at 5-8, but BC with a statement win against Ottawa at 6-7, and there's Winnipeg at 6-7.
Yeah, the West Division standings are really tightening up for the Bombers, and it's good that they won the tiebreaker over BC all the way back in week 3, because that's definitely coming into play right now. And Remis, it was so interesting to me because Schnitzy and I did the WST Bombers report last night, came out this morning. Go check it out if you haven't already. And what I said on that was, if you told me the Bombers going into this game, even starting with Chris Streveler, would run for 198 yards, 7.6 yards per carry as a team, and give up 0 explosion plays, and I mean against the Hamilton Tiger Cats, Bo Levi Mitchell and Kenny Lawler, no passes over 30 yards, I would have thought, I mean, at least it would be a very close game, let alone maybe the Bombers even winning that game, because they ran for 200 yards and there were no explosion plays defensively. And they only lost the turnover battle by 2-1. Well, you look at how those turnovers, how the Hamilton built off of those turnovers, especially the first one on a screen pass that just never had a chance. I mean, it was basically a pick 6 because Hamilton got it inside the 5-yard line, scored on their very next play. And then the one that's a killer for me was the second one. And that was at the end of the first half. It's 13-10 Hamilton. The Bombers are running the ball. They're within striking distance. And Chris Streveler's rolling right. He has Chris Ike wide open in the flat and forces a ball to Nick Dembski as the DB is driving on it. And Hamilton then gets that turnover, gets that interception, and scores a touchdown to go into half up 20-10. So that was something that really, really hurt the Bombers. And even though there was a full half of football left, at 20-10, it felt like the dagger. For them to only turn the ball over twice is honestly a win for this team, because they've turned over the ball a lot this season. They have the top 2 quarterbacks in the CFL in interceptions in Zach Collaros and Chris Streveler in the entire league. But it was just puzzling to me to look at the stats after the game and see 200 rushing yards effectively at 7.6 yards per carry, with no explosion plays for Hamilton, and think the game played out how it did, where it felt like the Bombers never really had a chance, Remo.
Yeah, 36 turnovers for the Blue and Gold in 13 games. That's not going to get it done. Yeah, and you mentioned Collaros and Streveler, top 3 interceptions. Streveler did have some garbage time where they almost covered the spread there, but it never really seemed close, as you said, after that, missed opportunity there at the end of the first half. And Chris Streveler, his last 110 passes, 9 interceptions and 3 touchdowns. The touchdown interception ratio or differential, certainly not good enough. And I think there were questions after the game saying, hey, Terry Wilson, he's been on this roster for a while. We haven't really seen him. Is it time to give him a shot? As it really, as you mentioned, the Bombers didn't have much of a chance there. There were some positives, as you said. Brady Oliveira carrying the ball 15 times for 116 yards. Ontario Wilson has looked very good. He's returning from the NFL. 5 catches on 74 yards. And the defense, as you said, the explosion play has been a problem all year for them. Didn't allow any in the last game on Friday, and held Bo Levi Mitchell to 230 yards. And they held Trevor Harris. They did pretty good. The defense putting them in position to win, but when they keep turning the ball over, making it hard, and you like to think that's a correctable thing, and you're hoping that Zach Collaros can be healthy and come back. I haven't seen any updates today. I'll ask Taylor Allen shortly coming up. But here's Mike O'Shea after the game. If the difference between winning and losing was as simple as them losing their turnover battle.
I mean, that's the easy one until we look at it and see what exactly happened. But yeah, they got 14 points off that. But once again, it's too easy to finger point at one thing, right? I mean, you'd like a better 3-phase game where, if we happen to give a ball away, that we hold them to a field goal or no points, take the ball back, right? Hold them to a single, whatever it is. But it didn't work out that way, right? We got to do a better job taking care of the football, and we got to do a better job when we come on the field after a mistake happens, right? We got to do a better job of coming on and fixing it for our teammates, right? So we weren't really in phase all 3 phases this week, this game.
Weren't in all 3 phases, and it was the last time Streveler started and they won, where they had the 2 the 2 return touchdowns. You had a defensive touch, and you feel like we're going to put up some big points. They needed help in that areas. And shout out to Waiters in chat asking about Kenny Lawler's numbers. Revenge game for Kenny Lawler. he had 77 catches for 97 yards. So, and that's, I don't know, an average game for Kenny this season. wasn't anything too crazy. Here's Mike O'Shea is asked about the 2 first half turnovers.
The one looked like a really damn good play by the DB, so other than that, I'll have to take a closer look.
Was there any thought of giving Terry a look?
Pardon me?
Was there any thought of giving Terry a look at any point tonight?
Strev's won us a bunch of games. Yeah, give him the opportunity to win his games. It's really still not out of it, right? In those situations, still got a chance.
Like, are we to take anything from the fact that Zach was here and throwing around in the warm-up that increases his chances for next week?
Yeah, I don't know. Once again, I think he looks good. We'll see what happens, but we'll always put the player first.
There's Mike O'Shea after the game. You heard Taylor Allen there asking the first questions. He's in the on-deck circle, ready to come up, but here's Taylor asking Chris Streveler just what the difference was in the game on Friday.
Turnovers. I can't throw 2 interceptions, and just got to help our defense out, man. I thought our defense played pretty well tonight. But when we give them short field twice and they capitalize with points like that, it's hard to win games. And it's just, yeah.
Sorry, man. Take us through the 2 picks in the first.
The first play was a screen pass and corner shot. He made a good play. Next play was a rollout. Dembski had a hook and man-to-man coverage, and again, DB made a good play. So, I just got to make better decisions and got to put us in better positions. And but I am proud of the way we fought till the end. It says a lot about our team, and although we are frustrated and we're not playing our best football, we're not going to give up.
It's Chris Streveler in the locker room after the game. Shout out to the Blue Bombers YouTube channel for that video, and shout out to the Winnipeg Jets website for the Connor Hellebuck video as well. We'll get more into the Bombers' loss against Hamilton with Taylor Allen of the Winnipeg Free Press. But first, here's Huss.
We are so excited to be partnering up with the Health Sciences Center Foundation for the HSC Millionaire Lottery launch, folks, and tickets are now on sale. Of course, this is how you can help save lives at Manitoba's hospital, the Health Sciences Center, and become a millionaire. And tickets are on sale now at hscmillionaire.com. You can become Manitoba's newest millionaire with the grand prize draw. Win the all-Canadian dream, a luxury home in Manitoba or oceanfront in BC worth $1.5 million, or take $1.25 million in tax-free cash. Now, there's more early winners than ever before this year, which means get your tickets now. There's $340,000 in early draws, including the brand new Grey Cup bonus. And the fall bonus right now, if you get your tickets before September 25th, you'll have the opportunity to choose from over $48,000 in prizes, or a 2026 Toyota RAV4, $40K in cash, $40,000 in Indigo travel vouchers, plus a $5,000 in cash. And of course, 2 winners of gas and groceries, $1,000 in Red River Co-op gift cards. It is for an unbelievable cause, Manitoba's hospital, and it is the biggest lottery of the year. So get your tickets now today, hscmillionaire.com. You can call as well, toll free, 1-855-999-5688. Or if you'd like to buy them in person, pop down to London Drugs, St. Vital Center, or Red River Co-op food stores in Winnipeg and Selkirk. And again, hscmillionaire.com. You know what to do, folks. Hey, if you've got a move coming up this fall, holler at our friends at Rolly's Transfer, the experts in the business, the most trusted name in moving for over 60 years in Manitoba. Check out their website at rollys.com for all of their services and more on their story. But click on that request an estimate in the top right corner and put in the promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies for Winnipeg Sports Talk listeners. And then let them know when you're planning on moving, where you're going to, and what you will be moving. And the friendly staff at Rolly's will turn it around real quick and get you locked in for the white glove treatment that they are famous for now into their 7th decade. For all your moving needs, Lean on the gang at Rollies, the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba. Find out more, request an estimate today over at rollies.com. Well, the kids are back at school. We're moving into fall, but have you forgot to see the dentist lately? Hey, listen, if you or your family need a new spot to go in to take care of all your dental needs, head on down to our friends at St. Vital Dental Center. Dr. Terry and his wonderful staff would love to take care of you, as they've been doing for generations of Manitobans, serving clients from 6 months to 99 plus with a full array of dental services, from cleanings and checkups all the way to procedures like dental implants. They do it all with a smile on their face, and they'll make your smile look better than ever before. Beautiful new facility, 167 St. Anne's Road, convenient free parking right behind the building. Find out more online and make an appointment at stvitaldental.ca. And make sure to tell them your boys at Winnipeg Sports Talk sent you. And hey, Bomber fans, there's still time to get your hands on that special edition, limited edition Blue Bomber label Canadian Club. Of course, Canadian Club is the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the iconic Canadian whiskey since 1858. As the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, they've got a special Blue Bomber bottle that is on shelves now at your local Manitoba liquor marts while supplies last. And while you're there, make sure to keep your eye out for the Canadian Club Club Pack, because we've got a little bit of more summery weather. Why not get the best drinks from the summer? The Canadian Club and Ginger Ale, the Citrus Smash, the Half and Half, all available in the Canadian Club Club Pack, along with the special edition Bomber bottle of Canadian Club at your local Manitoba liquor marts.
There's still be back Thursday when we're at Hockey for All Center from Jets training camp, but pleased to be joined right now by Taylor Allen, the Winnipeg Free Press. He was in Hamilton covering the Bombers' loss to the Ticats. Taylor, how's it going? How are you feeling?
Going great. Had a nice time in the Hammer, but yeah, happy to be home and happy to be on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Yeah, nice talking to you, Taylor. I do have to say, we didn't really touch on it today, but it was a big topic on Friday. Just was supposed to be, the team, or was the Team Ted game for Ted Govaya, and have the shocking news come out that morning that he had passed in advance of the game to honor him. I'm sure it had a bit of a different feel in the pregame, and they had a very nice tribute during the game and on the broadcast. What was your reaction about the news and being at the game for the tribute? How was it received in the stadium?
Yeah, the Ticats did an incredible job honoring Ted. They played a really nice tribute video that had people from, all over the years from his career, talking about just like Ted's impact on Canadian football, not even just the CFL, just Canadian football in general. So it was a beautiful tribute. They gave everyone in the crowd a Team Ted towel, and this big Team Ted flag that they, had on the field in the stands and stuff. So yeah, it was a really nice tribute and really well done. But yeah, it's just goes without saying, obviously, but just such a heartbreaking story. I mean, here's a guy who was only 55 years old, born in Burlington, like the Ticats. That was his hometown team, and he paid his dues, worked his way up the ranks, spent 10 years with the Bombers as an assistant GM. And finally, last winter, he gets his dream job for his hometown, Ticats, to be the head general manager. And despite only getting a chance to do the job for less than a year, I mean, look at the Ticats now. Last year, they missed the playoffs. And now I know there's been a lot of kind of things going on in the East with the quarterbacks and injuries and whatnot. But I mean, the Ticats have taken advantage, and they're in first place, and they're a legit Grey Cup contender. And there's a good chance we're going to see them in Winnipeg in November. So, and Ted's fingerprints are obviously all over that. So, yeah, the tribute was really well done. Terrible, super sad story, obviously. And unfortunately, I only got to meet Ted once, but he was seriously one of the funny, even in just a 5-minute interaction. I'm not even exaggerating. He's one of the funniest people I've ever met. I think he made me laugh like half a dozen times. And it was just evident how much he just loved football and how passionate about it he was, and just how much of a people person he was as well. So, yeah, condolences, of course, to everyone that knew Ted.
Yeah, 100%. As you said, 55 years old, get your dream job, GM of the Ticats, and to have that type of diagnosis, just terrible on all accounts. Great football mind. Part of the Bombers' championship runs, huge part of that, and had some great conversations about Ted on Friday with Jeff Hamilton and Marshall Ferguson. But onto the Bombers now, Taylor, in a tough spot here. I mean, how shocking is it that the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are at 6-7 here, fighting for their playoff lives against BC and possibly even Edmonton?
Well, at this time last year, they had a similar record, but obviously this feels totally different because at this time last year, the team was kind of surging, right? They had that rough start and they were, and even in that rough start, there were some signs that they weren't as bad as their record indicated, but then they were starting to find their footing at this time of year. Then the rest is history. They went on their big run. Where now this year, obviously, was a different story, starting out great. And then since that 3-0 start, it just hasn't been consistent football by the Bombers. So, they've lost 3 in a row now, and the story keeps being the turnovers. They keep shooting themselves in the foot. I mean, this is a team that you look at these past 5 years, whatever it's been, they've been so good at keeping care of the football, right? They were never the team to beat themselves. They would always maybe be outplayed or something, but they were not a team that would be making so many mistakes and shooting themselves in the foot. But this year, it's totally different. I mean, look at the interception leaders in the CFL. The Bombers have 2 quarterbacks in the top 3, Zach at number 2 and Chris at number 3. I don't think I've ever seen that at any level of football. Never mind the pros in the CFL. So, these past couple of years, basically, the Bombers making the playoffs was never even a conversation. Basically, the conversation was, okay, well, what week are these guys going to clinch the top spot in the West? And who are they going to play in the West Final at home? But this year, you actually have to have the conversation that there's no guarantee that this team makes the playoffs. Thankfully for them, they played BC early on, so they clinched the tiebreaker against the Lions. But there's still 5 games left, and it's not like they have an easy schedule either. So, they're going to have to turn things around pretty quickly here. Otherwise, this could come down to the wire.
One area the team has improved the last couple of weeks, I think, is the defense, giving them a chance to win. Holding Trevor Harris to season low passing yards in the Labor Day Classic. Bo Levi Mitchell wasn't a crazy day, although Greg Bell did the heavy lifting on Friday. But it is the offense, it's turnovers, whether it's Zach Claris or Chris Streveler in, as you mentioned, leading the league in turnovers. Is this something that they can clean up, or if it continues this way, maybe we do see maybe not a playoff appearance this year?
I mean, does Zach and Chris need to be playing better? I mean, absolutely. It goes without saying. But at the end of the day, though, I don't think it's a coincidence that both these guys are in the top 3 in interceptions. And I think a big reason for it is the growing pains of a first-year offensive coordinator in Jason Hogan. And I mean, this is a guy who the team was really high on, right? He's been the running backs coach these past couple of years, helped Brady become an MOP player, and Brady, gave so much praise to Jason Hogan, how much he helped him, get his confidence and whatnot. Because if you look back at Brady's the very start of his career, he didn't start out too hot, right? And he believes Jason's a big reason why he was able to turn it around and be, one of the faces of the league. But you just watch this offense week in and week out, and they either just look predictable or they just look like they're doing something that's just a real head scratcher that even a football, novice, a football rookie would be like, what are you doing? Like, why, what are you doing that over there? Or what kind of play call is that, I should say. And the 2 interceptions that Chris threw, and honestly should have been 3, but the 2 that he did throw in the first half were obviously backbreakers, right? But on both those picks, though, it looked like Hamilton knew exactly what was coming. So, and that's not excusing Chris. Obviously, that was a tough outing by him, and he turned it on late, but I mean, that was way too late, obviously. But I think this offense is just a dysfunctional mess. And honestly, I kind of feel like it doesn't even matter when Zach gets back, and that could be as early as this week. We'll find out more tomorrow when they return to practice. But it just feels like Jason Hogan is kind of in over his head a little bit. And the ironic thing is, this is an individual who hasn't been a full-time OC at any level the last time he was a full-time OC at any level was back in 2014, I believe at this a college level in out of Laval, not U Sports, a tier below that, I believe. And yet the Bombers have Jarius Jackson, an individual who played 12 plus years of pro football, most of that in the CFL, obviously. And he's been an OC. He's a guy who's called plays in the CFL with at least 3 different teams. And yet, he's sitting there and not calling the plays, right? I'm sure he has some input, obviously, but it's just, I don't know. Mike O'Shea is so loyal that I don't see him ever making a change like this in season. But I think for this Bombers offense, the best, if you ask me, what's the best thing they could do to get, stop turning the ball over and be more efficient on offense and get back to playing Blue Bombers, offensive football, it'd be giving the headset to Jarius Jackson. But again, I don't see them doing that.
So Zach Collaros, you mentioned, it seemed if they want to have a chance to win, they would need him in the lineup. Got injured in the Banjo Bowl. You figure, when do you think we'll see him? I know they didn't practice today. We can only speculate, but it has to be good news that we saw him on the sideline in Hamilton throwing. Yeah,
absolutely. He made the trip to Hamilton, so that alone is a good sign. And he was warming up before the game, doing some throwing and whatnot. And after the Banjo Bowl, where the game he did get hit, let's not forget, he did jog off the field. He was in the locker room right after the game, talking to the guys and whatever. And I did see him in the weight room, that week as well. So we're all kind of speculating, obviously. But Zach, if it is a concussion or a head or whatever type of head injury, I don't know what else it could be if it's a head injury and it's not a concussion. But his other games that he did miss this year, they were not concussions. He was on the injury report with a neck injury, and the Bombers say no, those were not concussions. That was legit a neck issue. So if it is a concussion, this is his first one of the year. Obviously, we all know wouldn't be the first of his career, but obviously, anytime this guy gets an injury anywhere above the shoulders, it's going to lead to a lot of dialogue, and Milt Stiegel's been at the forefront of that. But I can tell you, Zach's season is not over. He's itching to get back in there, and again, I would not be surprised if it's as early as this week, and we'll find out a lot more tomorrow as to what he's doing and whatnot. But I at this point, I'd be surprised if he wasn't playing against Ottawa.
All right, we're on Zach watch for tomorrow. And you were at the game on Friday in Hamilton. You asked Mike O'Shea after the game if he considered putting in Terry Wilson based on how it had gone. Were you surprised that his answer was not at all?
No, definitely not surprised. This is Mike O'Shea. He's the most loyal guy in pro football, it seems. I was talking to someone in the press box and I said, what do you think actually would have to happen tonight for Mike to pull the cord on Chris? Honestly, I think it would have been like 4 or 5 interceptions. He said he didn't even, think about it for a split second to put Terry Wilson in. And I know curiosity is getting the best of everyone. Everyone is itching to see what Terry Wilson could do. Not by choice, but just because Chris Streveler hasn't looked very good, obviously, since that week 2 game. Since then, it's been way downhill, to put it kind of lightly. But honestly, no, I'm not surprised that they didn't consider Terry Wilson. And, part of me at the same time, I kind of get why. We've seen Terry in practice for 2 years now, and he does throw a nice ball. I'll give him credit for that. And actually, here's a perfect example. Earlier last week, he got a few reps, and he threw this beautiful 40 to 50 yard dime to the middle of the field to Joey Corcoran, a Canadian rookie receiver with 2 defenders on him. He just dropped it in the bucket, just a beautiful throw. And you're like, holy smokes, where did that come from? And then the very next play, he throws a pick right to Evan Holm. And I'm not exaggerating whatsoever. There was no receiver in sight anywhere. And yeah, that's one instance. It's just 2 plays, obviously. But seriously, it feels every time he gets reps in practice, it's kind of a similar story where he'll make a throw that's like, holy smokes, that was amazing. And then he'll do something really boneheaded after. So I know people, their patience with Chris Streveler is wearing thin. But honestly, I don't know if Terry Wilson would have been any better. But again, until we actually see him on the field, no one really knows, right?
Him, and at this point you've been on the roster for a couple of years. You're wondering, well, if he's not going to go in this type of situation, how come he's still on the roster? And you go back to the Grey Cup, they did play Zach Collaros with a missing finger, badly injured finger ahead of him. So I think if they want to have any success, they'll need Zach Collaros in there. But you're saying that it's more about the play calling have an effect than the quarterback that's executing the plays.
Yeah, that's my theory, honestly. And again, like I said, Zach and Chris need to be better, but I just don't think this offense has really looked all that creative. That week 2 game, their first game of the year, Chris Trevler throws three touchdowns. It looks awesome. But since then, feels like there hasn't really been like a full, complete performance by the offense. And another issue too is they keep putting themselves in a hole, going into halftime. And then when that happens, you can't rely on Brady Oliveira that much when you're playing catch up, especially Friday in Hamilton. So Brady had 110 yards rushing at halftime. So you're like, oh, okay, here we go. He's going to run for over 200. Then he finished with six more yards in the second half. Because again, they had to play catch up. They dug themselves this big hole, and the defense did the best as they could to kind of keep them in it and whatnot. Honestly, the score is very generous. 32-21 looks like pretty even game, but like it really wasn't. Hamilton kind of kicked them pretty good. So yeah, I think Jason Hogan. I know people were kind of over the Buck Pierce era, and I feel Buck did a lot of good for the Bombers, obviously, but that last Grey Cup, especially, people were really Bomber fans. Were really itching for a change, and they got one. And this is kind of what happens sometimes when you have an inexperienced play caller. You see it in the NFL, right? And now we're seeing it in the CFL, obviously. So again, I would be surprised if Jason Hogan was the OC next year. But earlier in this year, Mike O'Shea did say in an interview that he would never fire a coordinator during the season. So don't expect any changes this year.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out. Upcoming game against Ottawa. How are the players taking? This is a team that can't be used to losing like this at all. 6-7, but you could have read Cramdy saying what he's sick of it. What was the mood like in the locker room, and how are the players reacting to the state of the team right now?
Well, for weeks, you talk to one of these guys after a loss, and they kind of say the same thing over and over again. It's where we just got to look ourselves in the mirror and, get back to work and, do all of the small things and we'll get back to in the winning column and blah, blah, blah. But finally, Reddit Cramby, thank God for him. He was refreshing after the Hamilton game, and he said, I'm sick of talking, man. We keep saying the same thing over and over again. We just got to start playing better and winning games. And then, I was talking to Willie Jefferson about like, hey, man, like since you've been in Winnipeg, you guys have been killing it, obviously. And now this is the actual first year where you're heading into the back half of the year, and making the playoffs isn't a guarantee. Just kind of take me through where you're at right now. And he said, honestly, I'm not worried about the standings. I'm really not. We just got to keep doing what we're doing. We're going to figure this out. It's going to be okay. And, I talked to a couple of guys about just their confidence in Chris Trevler moving forward, if he does have to keep playing. And Brady and Nick both went to bat for him. And I get it. Like, what are they going to say? Are they really going to say, no, Taylor, yeah, Chris stinks. We need Zach back as soon as possible. I get that. But they kind of looked at me like I was almost kind of crazy for even asking whether they're still confident in Chris Trevler or not. So, no one's pressing the panic button, but even just watching the game on TV, you can see the frustration in some of these guys' faces. Nick Dembski, after that pick that was thrown in his direction, you can see how pissed off he looked. Brady Oliveira, there's an instance, I think, in the first half. You can just see how annoyed that he looked, and on the sideline as well. And yeah, in the locker room, you could definitely kind of feel that tension, and it is starting to rise after all these losses. But again, though, like, no one is pressing the panic button. Mike O'Shea, he's not. His approach is very interesting. Like, lots of coaches after three losses in a row, they're not necessarily throwing guys under the bus, but they're a bit more open with the media, a little harsher about the performance of their team and some aspects of their team and whatnot. But Mike still hasn't done that. He's still just keeps saying the same thing. We just got to keep working hard, and we're going to figure this out. So if they are pressing the panic button, they're hiding it very well.
Yeah, I just think it's the turnovers the last couple games. They've cleaned up the big plays allowed. I've said that a couple times today. I'm curious how they turn, if they can clean up this stuff on offense. Maybe they could make a run. Just got to get in the playoffs. You never know what could happen here. And before the game, Taylor, you chatted with former Bomber Kenny Lawler and made some headlines there with his statements about Winnipeg. What was your takeaway from your conversation with Kenny, who said he felt disrespected by the Blue Bombers when they offered Dylan Mitchell a contract ahead of him? And as we said on Friday, He should have felt that way based on how the season has played out for both players this year.
Well, I didn't really chat with him. We just sat down on the couch and off to the races he went. I think I asked him like 2 questions and he just kind of was unloaded on me, just how he felt, how disrespected that he felt by the Bombers and whatnot. And I mean, we all know there's 2 sides to every story, and we all know how patient the Bombers have been with Kenny Lawler in recent years. I mean, let's not forget, this is a guy who did have a DUI or DWI when he was with the Bombers, and they didn't get rid of him. They stood by him and whatever. And he left for the big payday in Edmonton a few years back, and the Bombers welcomed him back with open arms and whatnot. So there are 2 sides to every story, but I mean, at the end of the day, though, this is a guy who's arguably the best receiver in the league. He was living in Winnipeg year round, loved the city, loved the local football scene, and was active with Recruit Ready, a local program that helps younger football players develop and with camps and whatnot. And I mean, the salary cap is a thing, but also too, like, I wonder if the Bombers just kind of a little tired of Kenny's shtick, maybe. Who knows? But I mean, when he left Edmonton, though, he kind of bashed them pretty good, and now he's left the Bombers for a second time, and he's obviously bashed them pretty good. So it's kind of unfortunate. Obviously, Kenny was a fan favorite and a hell of a player, and you look at this Bombers roster today, you're like, man, they could really use a guy like Kenny Lawler. But I mean, to his credit, though, he backed up the talk. He was the best receiver on the field on Friday. Led all receivers in receiving. And look at his numbers; he's already has career numbers, and the season's not even over yet.
In the league in receiving yards behind Keon Hatcher. Him and Bo Levi have been quite the connection this year. Taylor, it was great talking to you today on the show. I'm looking forward to reading what you got in the Free Press this week, and we'll be all eyes on practice tomorrow when the Blue Bombers return at who's taking first team reps at quarterback. Taylor, thanks again for joining me here today on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
You bet. Thanks, guys. Take care.
There he is, Taylor Allen. Follow him on X. Taylor Allen 31? That's 31 for Reggie Miller, I believe. Big Pacers fan, Taylor Allen. So Bombers 6 and 7. They'll be back in action on, is it Friday again? Against Ottawa. Sorry, Saturday afternoon in Ottawa. Jeff Hamilton will be there, and he'll join Hustler later this week to tee that one up. From the Bombers to the Jets, Mike McIntyre. He's getting ready for the start of the season. He's going to join me in a second. But first, here's Hustler.
As always, we'd like to thank Princess Auto for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Of course, Princess Auto, founded and headquartered right here in Winnipeg and now coast to coast, is the home of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, home the Princess Auto Stadium. But we've got Princess Autos coast to coast, including 3 in Manitoba, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, and of course out in Brandon for our friends in Westman. Princess Auto is where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. So pop by and see them in store or shop online today, 24/7, 365, and get those ideas and plans working as we get into fall. Hey, speaking of fall, it won't be too long before we're worrying about making sure the cars and the trucks are starting in the morning. Donnie and Manitoba Battery have you covered for that, as they have all summer long for batteries for boats and campers and ATVs, you name it. Sled season not too far away as well. Whatever you need batteries for, the bottom line is Manitoba Battery is your local option where you'll save big over the big box stores and get the best customer service in town. Manitoba Battery pledges to have the best prices in town, period. Got a big harvest sale on right now, so make sure to check all those details out at manitobabattery.com. But in addition, they'll take care of you with 2 locations, Logan Avenue or the new location on the south end on Dovercourt Drive. But better yet, Manitoba Battery knows you're busy, and they'll deliver those batteries to you for free anywhere inside the perimeter with any purchase over $60. It's just that easy. Pop by and see Manitoba Battery in store for the best deals in town, or give them a call or order online at manitobabattery.com and let Donnie and the gang bring the best deals on batteries in town to you. And hey, fellas, with that fall pretty much here, I know many of you might be looking into your closet and saying, you know what? I need to up my menswear game. Well, good news. You can do that with one trip down to the leaders in custom men's clothing in town, F Apparel at 190 Smith Street, just a slap shot from the arena downtown. F Apparel has the best in custom men's clothing, including suits starting at $400, chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and the best selection of menswear accessories in town. If you are getting married or in a wedding party, make sure to talk to the guys at F about a special discount for the wedding party when you get your suits for the big day. For all your menswear needs, make it F Apparel. You can find out more online and make an appointment to come in for a fitting at F. That's EPHapparel.com, and visit them in their showroom at 190 Smith Street downtown.
There's us. He'll be back Thursday. He's in KC taking in a Chiefs loss. I'm sure many people in chat very happy that he went or that they lost. I don't know that he went for a loss, but I think people are ready to move on from the Chiefs as their dynasty ending as well. Anyways, let's bring in Mike McIntyre, Winnipeg Free Press. Mike, it's finally here. Winnipeg Jets on the ice. How's it going? Thanks for coming on today.
Always good to be here, Remo. Question, who's more disappointed today? Hustler, who drove all the way to Kansas City to watch a loss, or my partner in crime, my teammate, Ken Wiebe, who drove not nearly as long of a drive. He only went to the Twin Cities, but he drove, and he drove yesterday, and he's on his way back today. So like 16-hour round trip to see 2 field goals for his beloved Minnesota Vikings. At least the Chiefs gave it a good effort, and it was an entertaining game. Kenny saw a bit of a clunker in the Twin Cities. A lot of sad Vikings fans, I guess, in this neck of the woods today. Vikings and Chiefs.
To be fair to Hustler, he did fly. He didn't drive.
If that's
any consolation. And I think he's taking a Royals game as well this week, probably eating some good barbecue. That's a quick in and out for Ken to not see a touchdown. And I did just get an alert on my app. JJ McCarthy's going to be out a couple weeks with a sprained ankle. I can't bring it. I don't know where. It was one of the apps alerted me. So that's a tough one. Carson Wentz
time, yeah.
Carson Wentz. That's a tough one for Ken. That's a quick drive.
I'm glad you mentioned. I might have to scramble to grab Carson Wentz in my fantasy leagues, because I unfortunately, in one of my leagues, not our media league, my other league, I have Joe Burrow, who initially I saw he had turf toe, and I'm like, turf toe? Like, so he stubbed his toe. He should be fine. Then I see that turf toe is actually, it's a pretty significant injury, and Joe Burrow may be out for a while, so I suddenly need a quarterback. So maybe Carson Wentz. The Vikings have a lot of great receivers, and JJ McCarthy, he had that one good quarter last week in the comeback win, but he's kind of struggled in the other 7 quarters. So maybe Carson Wentz can work a little magic, and maybe I'll grab him for my fantasy team. Thanks for that heads up, Remo.
Yeah, Connor, who doing the show, he's got Joe Burrow in the media league, and I'm playing against him this week. We'll touch on that at the end of the show, but it seems I want to get too deep into the Vikings before we get to the Jets, but it seems like whoever they put in puts up some yards, so maybe they can revive Carson Wentz's career. But on to the Jets. You were watching the the prospect camp showdown. Montreal win Saturday, win Ottawa. Biggest takeaway from what you saw from the prospects?
Danny Zilkin. He's ready. He's ready to go. It's kind of funny, like Saturday's game, you had 20,000 people at the Bell Center in Montreal. What a turnout, first of all. I'm seeing highlights of, all NHL teams do some form of these prospects tournaments now with their kids. Although I think there's just 2 NHL teams. Someone was telling me the other day that there's just 2 teams that don't do it. I think the Islanders are one, and can't recall who the other team is. But anyways, most teams do this. But seeing some of the video, like they're playing in empty barns, like friends and family in attendance, and that's about it. 20,000 people were there on Saturday night. What an experience for, these Jets kids to be in that environment, and a hostile environment, because the fans were, of course, there to cheer for the Montreal prospects, especially Mr. Demidov, who, was a force. He had 2 goals. First goal was an absolute beauty. But it was another Russian, although Danny Zhilkin's Russian kind of only in birth certificate. He was primarily raised in Canada. You listen to him speak, he does not sound like a Russian hockey player at all. He's basically Canadian. But Danny Zhilkin had a big night on Saturday, 2 goals, had a big night last night, 2 assists, including the overtime winner. Scored the winner with 25 seconds left on Saturday. 4 points, nice haul for him. And this is a guy who, he's still a Jets prospect and a center prospect, which can never have too many of those. But he hasn't had the greatest start to his pro career. A couple of tough years with the Moose, injury-plagued years. But my goodness, he was the best player of the non-goaltender variety, because the 2 goaltenders, Dom DiVincentis and Alex Worthington, were terrific in both games. But Danny Zhilkin was, he looks ready to go, and that could be a big boon for the Moose. And who knows, get off to a great start with the Moose, play to his potential, and all of a sudden he might be working himself into the conversation for a potential call-up for the Jets. A lot of eyes, of course, on the big prospect names, Elias Salomonson, Braden Yager. I thought both guys were fine. I mean, they didn't jump off the page. Elias Salomonson's biggest contribution was flying in to drop the gloves with a 6'7" giant, a fellow Swede, actually, who had just crushed Nikita Chibrikov from behind with a dirty hit. I know the hit was all over social media last night. Fortunately, Chibrikov was okay. But good on Salomonson for getting in there. It was a very short scrap. They kind of just wrestled to the ice, defending his teammate. But Chibrikov was fine. He got up, and he actually set up the power play goal on the ensuing power play. Nice shot that Jacob Julian tipped. So, yeah, I mean, the guys like Yager, Salomonson, Chibrikov, they were all good. Zhilkin was the one who really stood out to me. And then, a guy that maybe didn't know much about coming into this weekend, Chase Yoder. What a cool story. The Jets have this pipeline, it seems, with Providence College of undrafted, unsigned free agents. Brandon Tanev, Parker Ford, and now perhaps Chase Yoder. He's the 3rd guy they've signed out of Providence. And kind of like Tanev and Parker Ford, a bit undersized, but a motor that doesn't quit. Scored a beauty highlight reel goal the other day on Saturday. Ended up with 3 points for the weekend. And he's on an AHL deal with the Moose. But I'll tell you this, Remis, the Moose are going to be a lot of fun to watch this year. Not only because they've got guys like Colby Barlow, who was really good in Saturday's game, by the way, had a goal and an assist. Could have had another one. He had a goal taken away for a high stick. Hit a post yesterday as well. You got Colby Barlow, Braden Yager, and Jacob Julian all turning pro. All prominent draft picks of the Jets. They'll be making their pro debuts with the Moose. And then they've signed a bunch of guys, some established AHL vets to surround the kids. And then you've got guys like Chase Yoder and Danny Zhilkin. Like, the Moose are going to be a lot of fun. They had a rough year last year. Mark Morrison should have a real good group to work with. And there should be some good hockey being played by the Moose, I suspect.
Yeah, it's fun to get excited about prospects, but I imagine, they're all going to have an immediate impact in the AHL rather than the NHL level. The NHL roster seems like we have a pretty good idea who's going to be going to be starting the season on there heading into training camp.
Yeah, it's interesting. So today the Winnipeg Jets were holding their annual golf tournament down at St. Charles, and media were down there to chat with a few players before they teed off this morning. So we talked to Connor Hellebuck and Josh Morrissey, and it was interesting. Josh Morrissey told me I'd asked him a question just about the roster, what he likes, what he thinks about the group around him heading into this new season, and he said something really interesting to me, Remo. He said that he thinks this might be the deepest the Winnipeg Jets have ever been organizationally. And it's hard to argue with that. Like, they were pretty deep last year. And, certainly headlines about what they lost this summer, specifically Nikolai Ehlers. Obviously, they lost, a core piece in Ehlers. Mason Appleton and Brandon Tanev also moved on in free agency. Rasmus Kupari signed overseas. But they've added Jonathan Toews, obviously a multi-cup winner, decorated champion, Gustav Nyquist, Tanner Pearson, Cole Koepke, and, some of these guys now turning pro, like these young kids that'll push for work in guys like Yager and Barlow, Salomonson. Then you've got guys like Chibrikov and Brad Lambert. So, it was interesting to hear Josh Morrissey say we might be deeper than we've ever been. Now, you could make an argument, I suppose, that maybe they're not as top-heavy with the loss of an Ehlers, that they don't have an immediate guy to jump in and just replace him, in one fell swoop. But I've got time for the argument that the Jets are deeper than ever. And, just look at the blue line where they've got 9 guys on one-way deals. And there's a logjam on the blue line that's going to be one of the storylines in training camp here to see how that alleviates itself. Are there injuries that create openings and mean that guys don't have to go on waivers? Is there a trade or two that happened during camp or near the end of camp? Or do the Jets risk losing Ville Heinola, Logan Stanley, Colin Miller, whoever it might be, on waivers? And, that's a situation obviously to monitor. But yeah, I think when you look at the Jets roster as a whole, like, there's not a ton of jobs up for grabs. There'll be some competition for, the bottom 6, especially with Adam Lowry being out. There may be some things in flux there. Lowry's injury is going to create an opening that wouldn't otherwise exist if he was healthy. And, guys are just fighting for, I guess, their spot on the pecking order. And it's going to be more about, where guys are in terms of potential call-ups, things like that. But yeah, not a lot of drama, or huge question marks surrounding the roster and even line combinations. Like, I think we have a pretty good idea of who's going to be playing with who. So that's a bit different, but it's what you'd expect when you have a team that was the best regular season team in the league a year ago and is returning most of the same roster.
Last week, Adam Lowry, seen him skating at Hockey for All Center by himself, addressed the media. Seems like he might be back sooner than we thought. How do you see, who's going to be filling in his slot at 3 center in his absence? And, when do you anticipate he'll finally be returning? And I guess, we can tie him and Kyle Connor together. We're speculating a lot about Kyle Connor's next deal as he's entering the final year, but Adam Lowry too is entering. We think that's going to get done. He's the captain, but that's another thing that's hanging over the team.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the question marks certainly heading into training camp is, are we going to see Adam Lowry and or Kyle Connor contract extensions by the end of camp? And if we don't, how much discussion, how much of a distraction potentially is that going to be, spilling into the season? So Adam Lowry, of course, he addressed his contract situation last week, said he's not at all worried that it hasn't got done yet. I don't think there's any reason to worry. And, he joked that he knows he's not the top priority here. A not so subtle reference to Kyle Connor. Interesting, Remo. Kyle Connor, he just got in town this past weekend. He'd been training, of course, in Michigan, his off-season home. But so we were hoping to talk to him today at the golf tournament. Now, just to be crystal clear, players are under no obligation to speak with media prior to the official start of training camp, which will be Thursday. They're doing medicals and testing on Wednesday, but the first actual day of on ice is Thursday. And that's when, under the CBA, players, who are requested, they do have to talk. But Kyle Connor wanted to wait until Thursday. He didn't want to talk today. I won't read anything into that. I'll let folks, they want to try and find a reason for that. Is it because he's hopeful that something happens in the next few days? Is it because he's frustrated? Again, read into it what you will, but Kyle Connor didn't talk today. He will talk on Thursday. We'll get him at the start of camp. And will he be talking about a new deal, or will he be talking about ongoing discussions? We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I mean, I think the Jets would love to get both those guys locked up, not have it be a distraction. And coming off the Nikolai Ehlers situation last year, inevitably it's going to get asked about if new contracts aren't reached by the start of the season. Now, Lowry's a bit of a different story because he's going to be kind of out of sight and maybe out of mind a little bit, at least to start training camp. He told us last week, Remo, that he will continue to be in solitary confinement. That's what he called the fact he's been skating on his own. Like, he can't take contact. And you've seen the way they do these drills early in training camp. There's some intense battles that happen. And obviously they don't want to risk anything by having him participate in that. So Adam Lowry won't be taking part in main camp off the hop. But I will say he sure looks good for a guy who could still be potentially a couple months away from playing. Like, he's moving well around the ice. And originally the timeline for his return was sometime between late October and late November. Now, Lowry was asked last week, and he said that he's hoping for the earliest, which would be late October, or at the worst, early November. And then he did kind of throw in that, in his mind, he probably could return even earlier than that, but they don't want to push it. But it will be interesting to see a guy whose work ethic can never be questioned in Lowry, nor can his toughness. It'll be interesting to see if he does force that timeline to be moved up. But as he said, and I think the Jets are well aware of this, the last thing they want is for him to come back too soon, and a hip issue flares up again and, becomes something that plagues him throughout the year. Like, he wants to come back and then be back for good. But it was interesting to hear him kind of talk about this injury, the fact he's been dealing with it for years now. And, he said the injections he was getting for it, for the pain, had kind of worn off. They weren't having the desired effect anymore. And it really began to affect his everyday life. Like he said, walking upstairs, watching TV, he would feel the pain. So that's not great. And, just forget about hockey playing for a second, just quality of life. You want to get that cleaned up. So he says he feels great. He's looking pretty good out there. And, again, don't expect him to be with the main group when camp starts on Thursday. How quickly could he work his way into that group? That's another storyline we'll obviously be following as camp goes on here.
Is this, other than, the Kyle Connor contract might be the biggest one if he starts unsigned, but it's really starting to, come clear. I mean, this Jonathan Toews returning, signing with his hometown team. That's a league-wide, story. You saw that Sarah did the interview with him, the views, one of their higher viewed videos. I really wonder, we're going to see what he can bring after not playing for so long and how it's going to work out. Is he going to be the second line center? And what are you expecting to see from Jonathan Toews here? And what have you seen from him as he spoke to the media last week?
Yeah, well, I do expect he's going to be the second line center to start the season anyways. And, playing with Cole Perfetti and probably Gustav Nyquist, that to me is the most likely starting point for him. That doesn't mean that's the end point. I think Tays has looked really good for a guy who has been out of the league for 2 years. Like, to be clear, nobody is going full speed in these captain skates. They're very informal. I mean, guys have pride and all that, of course, so they're trying, but these are not drills that are being done under coach supervision with the idea of going as hard as possible. So I'll defer any judgment on how Tays looks until we see him start to do some drills in camp. And then, the next big test after that will, of course, be preseason games. And I asked Jonathan Tays last week, how many do you want to play? And he said the more the better. He didn't put a number on it. The Jets do have 6 preseason games. I got to think, Remo, he's probably going to play at least 3, maybe 4, like that, and normally a veteran might only play like 1 or 2. If he was just a regular kind of veteran and all things being equal. But I do wonder with Tays if they don't try to get him in a little bit more, just so he can be a bit more closer to up and running when the season starts. So we'll see. Scott Arniel will also talk on Thursday, and we'll see if he has an outline for what the plan for Tays is. But I do expect we'll see him, probably with Perfetti and Nyquist to start on the second line, and that would keep the Scheifele, Connor, Velarde line intact, and we'll see what the third line for now looks like. Obviously, no Adam Lowry. I got to think probably Vlad Nemestikov is in the middle there with Nino Niederreiter. And who's on that wing? Is it Alex Iafallo? Is it Morgan Barron? I mean, Barron is probably the fourth line center right now, but you could move him to the wing. You got David Gustafsson, obviously, who can play center on the fourth line. And then you got guys like Cole Koepke, Tanner Pearson, in the mix. So, yeah, it's, again, not a ton of intrigue or drama about the Jets lineup. I mean, could a Chibrikov or a Lambert push their way into the opening night lineup, especially with Lowry being on the sideline right now, even if it's as the 13th forward to start, perhaps. We'll see what Scott Arniel plans. And then, I'm also curious to see, is he going to keep 23 right out of camp? Or, which would mean maybe 8 defensemen? Does he want to just start with 7, in which case 2 hard decisions would have to be made? And that's not even giving any thought to a guy like Elias Solomonson, forcing his way into the mix. I got to think Solomonson's probably going to start with the Moose just because of the numbers game. But I also think he plays some NHL games this year, without question. I would say I think Lambert and Chibrikov all play NHL games this year. I just don't know how many at this point. A lot's going to be determined, by 2 things: health and success or lack thereof. And if things are going well with the big club and everybody's healthy, those guys are probably on the Moose for an extended period.
Yeah, especially on defense. Not a lot of room there. They've got 8, NHLers signed, plus Billy Heinola, plus Elias Salomonson.
Yeah.
Cale Clegg.
Yeah.
If there's enough injuries, he's on a 2-way. He could get called up as well. Do we see Tyrell Bauer? Again, that's way, way down line, but something to watch for. And Mike, we'll wrap it up here. As it was last week, the Frank Seravalli broke the news that Kirill Kaprizov turned down the 8-year, $128 million contract. That's a $16 million AAV. We're on the Kyle Connor contract watch here. I think Connor and who else is in there? Connor McDavid, Kaprizov, Jack Eichel. There's so many players here entering the final year of their deal. Are they just waiting for the first one to set the market? And what do you think? We're talking about 11 million AAV for Kyle Connor. I think that's a bit of a low estimate if Kaprizov's turning down 16 here.
Yeah, I mean, I think like everybody covers the league, I did a bit of a double take when I saw the thrill news. And I'm not not totally sure what that's all about. Like, does he just want out of Minnesota? Is it just the term? I mean, clearly the money can't be the issue. Like that's insane. And if it is the issue, he's delusional. Like, does he think he should make more than Connor McDavid? That being said, if you're the agent for Kyle Connor, I mean, why wouldn't you want to hit pause and potentially wait and see how that plays out? You know, it does feed into something that I think I've said on this show before, Remo, and just openly wondering if something shorter term might not be in the wheelhouse for Kyle Connor, with the idea of leaving the door open for one more big contract cash in, whether that's in, say, 3 or 4 years from now. Like if he signed, he's obviously under contract for one more year, but if he signed a 3 or 4 year extension, let's say 3 on top of the year, like that brings him to what, 32? And, you know, in 4 years from now, the cap, there's some predictions of the cap is just going to absolutely explode, especially if there's more expansion, you know, between now and then. And if Kyle Connor continues to be one of the elite snipers in the league, why not look at that? And if you're the Jets, it might make some sense too, right? You line him up with some of your other core players. You can evaluate where things are at down the road. So I do wonder if it's more about term, and even a guy like Kaprizov, like, again, 16, we look at 16 and say, well, he's a fool to turn that down, but does he think he could get 20 in a few years from now? So he doesn't want to take 16 for 8 because he thinks there's bigger number there ahead. Like that seems really far-fetched, but I don't know. I mean, some of these predictions about the cap are really out there. So yeah, I do wonder if that is not playing at least a small factor in Kyle Connor's contract negotiations and potentially holding things up. Why not? I mean, the problem is if everybody's waiting for the other guy to kind of go first, then nobody actually goes first. Like it's a game of chicken. At some point here, you know, again, I think the Jets will have to present their best offer to Kyle Connor. Do they have to present multiple offers? You know, here's what 8 years we would be willing to go, but here's something shorter term as well, perhaps. But yeah, it'll be interesting to watch. And by the way, we will hear on Thursday is going to be a busy day because not only is Kyle Connor speaking, Scott Arniel speaking, Kevin Shoveldayoff will also be speaking on Thursday. So we will no doubt have a lot of questions for the GM that day as well.
The panic meter for Kyle Connor. What date, if he's not signed, are you going to begin to panic? Opening day, or is it beyond that?
October 8th at midnight. What's opening day is what, October 9th? So I'd say October 8th is when it goes from a mild concern into a major worry. That's the day it flips for me. Mild concern to major worry. October 9th puck drop is when that's when I would set it up for sure.
Okay, that is the home opener against Dallas. So
yes,
you know, we had the big Thanksgiving announcement with Scheifele and Hrabchak. Thanksgiving is the first Monday of the regular season. There's actually the noon game against the Islanders.
Yes,
that day. So we won't have Thanksgiving again this year. Oh, maybe it could be on thing. Maybe it is that morning. Who knows? But so that's your date, home opener. Ken was saying March he would start to worry. We did see what the Byfuglien contract was signed in March. I think in February of that year when he was set to become a free agent.
I'm not saying full-blown panic if it's not done by opening day, but I would be concerned. More than just a little bit concerned if it's not done by opening day. Yeah, I mean, if it's not done by March, then that's like 5-alarm fire for sure. But no, I think it's more than just, it would be a reason to start to get worried if it's not done by opening day.
Perfect. Mike, thanks so much for coming on. Looking forward to seeing you at the rink. We'll be out there Thursday and Friday, and Saturday for FanFest and reading your latest in the Winnipeg Free Press, as well. Great mailbag with you and Ken discussing some of the hottest questions leading up to the training camp and regular season.
Thanks, Remo. Have a great week. Thanks.
There he is, Mike McIntyre. Read him in the Free Press. He's on social media at Mike McIntyre WPG. We got more coming up, but first, here's us.
Hockey season is here, and before you drop the puck on the new year, you got to head down to Winnipeg's #1 hockey superstore for over 50 years, Royal Sports, where you'll have the best selection, best deals, and the best customer service from hockey players who play the game to get you the right fit on all the equipment and needs for the upcoming season. It's only at Royal Sports. In addition to the best selection of sticks and equipment and skates and goalie gear, fans are getting ready for the season at Royal Sports. All the latest Jets merchandise, your Jonathan Taves jerseys and more available. And NFL fans, new NFL gear coming in by the week. So as your team sets out another season, get geared up at Royal Sports, Winnipeg's #1 sports superstore for over 50 years. Give them a follow on Instagram at Royal Sports Winnipeg for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. Man, this is a great time of year. The NFL is back. We've got primetime games. The CFL stretch to the playoffs continues. We got pennant races in baseball. When you're heading out to get together with your gang for the big game, make it Boston Pizza. Ice cold schooners, world famous BP wings, gourmet pizzas, and more. Great prizes to be won on all NFL primetime nights. And of course, the summer menu still kicking around with those delicious cherry cola beef sliders and more. No better place to get together with your gang for the big game than Boston Pizza. And if you are staying at home, you can always get the great taste of BP by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. The Ryder Cup countdown is on right now, a couple weeks away from Bethpage Black. Looking forward to having some more Breezy Bend golf reports coming up heading into the event. But in the meantime, as we finish up a beautiful golf season, it's time to think about 2026. And if Breezy Bend or one of the Winnipeg's top private courses is in your future, I'd suggest you get on that now. Holler at Corey Johnson at the clubhouse, 895-7205, or find out more on membership for the 2026 season today online at breezybend.ca. All right, as we continue the show, first things first, let's give a big cheers to our friends at Winnipeg and Manitoba's favorite local brewery, our friends at Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
There's us. We'll be back Thursday. So we talked Jets with Mike McIntyre. We had Bombers, Taylor Allen, Connor, and I talked as well. A bit of switching it up here for this segment. Pleased to be joined by Drew Shore, former NHL forward, played over a decade of professional hockey. He left University of Denver to sign with the Panthers. He played with the Flames, Canucks, multiple teams in Europe, and the KHL before retiring in 2021. Since retiring, he's become a player agent and launched a podcast, Betting the Limit, where he speaks with athletes about the challenges of transitioning out of pro sports. And he's been a great follow on Twitter/X, sharing smart takes on contracts, player development, and the state of today's NHL. Caught up with him earlier today with training camps coming up and about NHL and development. Here's my conversation from earlier with Drew Shore. Thanks for doing this. Training camps getting underway this week. This time of year bring back any memories for you?
Yeah, a little bit. I was actually laughing the other day. It's funny because all these teams have like normally pretty short like conditioning or skating tests, and you always used to get a little bit of anxiety. You'd have anxiety for about a week before getting it done, even though the test was only a couple minutes, but it would stress you out for about a week. But no, it's it's one of the few things about summer coming to an end is sports are starting to get rolling here, which is awesome. And yeah, I definitely miss playing always at this time of the year when guys are kind of heading off and getting ready to go for the season.
Yeah, what do you remember your summers like as a player? And, would that change compared to players today?
Yeah, a little bit. I definitely think overall as a trend, guys are taking less time off the ice than they used to. Like I think back kind of to 2011, 2012, like a lot of guys would take probably 2-3 months off the ice and then really ramp it up kind of in July or August before camp. And now most guys are taking maybe like 2 weeks off the ice, getting back on it. And I think that's one of the reasons why the game is better or been from a skill and entertainment perspective. So I think that's definitely changed.
Yeah, going back to 2009, you were drafted 44th overall by Florida. What do you remember about being selected? Well, what is that, 16 years ago now?
Yeah, honestly, for people who don't know, normally with the NHL draft, the first round is Friday night and rounds 2 through 7 are Saturday morning. And I was kind of slated by everyone to be a mid-first round pick. So I remember a lot of disappointment on that Friday night. And then obviously I was super excited to be selected by the Panthers the next morning.
And then you didn't jump to the NHL right away. You played a couple years at Denver and then left college, before your final year of eligibility. How difficult was weighing the decision to jump to the NHL and stay in college, and what ultimately made you sign?
I think one of the hardest things was I'm one of 4 boys, and one of the highlights of my career was playing with my brother Nick at different points. And if I stayed for my senior year, I could have played with my brother Nick, and my third brother Quentin would have been a freshman when I was a senior. So I think I was really ready to leave for a ton of reasons, but the one thing that would have kept me back was being able to play with both of them. And it's something I look back on now that I'm like, man, that would have been a pretty cool experience, especially for everyone in my family.
Yeah, then jumping to pro, first year was in San Antonio in the AHL, 30 points in 41 games, made the All-Star game. How important was that first season in the AHL for your development?
So that was a very unique year in the American Hockey League because the NHL was locked out. And so for people who don't know, a lot of teams, so we play a lot of the same teams every year in the American League. So for example, that year we played against Oklahoma City, who was Edmonton's affiliate, probably 15 times in the first 45 games. And so on their roster that year, they had Taylor Hall, who I think had played 2 years in the NHL, Jordan Eberle, Nugent Hopkins, Justin Schultz. It's really the best hockey the American League has ever had. And same thing with Texas. We were in San Antonio, so we played Texas all the time. They had a ton of guys who had played in the NHL in the years prior. So the hockey was awesome, and it was a great experience. And looking back on my career from an enjoyment standpoint, like there was no NHL at that point because the NHL was locked out. So you were really only focused on not necessarily getting called up every day or what the NHL team was thinking. You were kind of just playing hockey. So that was a blast. And San Antonio is a really fun city. And it's actually too bad they don't have a team there because guys love playing there.
And then finally getting called up to the NHL. Was there a welcome to the NHL moment where you realized, hey, I'm finally here. This is pretty cool?
Yeah, I mean, the first game I played was in Montreal, which is one of the coolest places to play a hockey game. And luckily my parents were able, they had a ton of crazy, because I didn't know if I was going to play or not, but they ended up getting there. And I remember just kind of giving my parents a hug after the game. And they spent so many hours helping me try and live out my dreams. And that was a pretty cool moment. We lost the game, but I just remember walking up to them and feeling pretty proud.
I know Florida was in the Southeast Division with the Winnipeg Jets here. It was one of the first couple of years. Any recollection of some of those first years in Winnipeg where, we're sold out to every game and a very excited crowd?
Yeah, I mean, that's the first thing that jumps off the page to me was just how loud the building is and how passionate the fans are. And it's one of the smallest, it might be the smallest building in the NHL from a capacity standpoint, but it almost makes it feel like it's one of like the atmosphere is just insane because the fans are right on top of you. And they've had a great team for a long time. And I remember back in the day when they had guys like Bufflin running around, it was a tough building to play in and always felt like you didn't have a lot of time and space out there.
Is that a guy, when you're on the ice, Bufflin, you're always aware of where he is?
Certainly. I mean, there's not too many guys like that, but he was definitely one of them, especially when he was playing really well during those points of his career that when he's out there.
And then, you made the jump college to AHL from the NHL. What would you say was the biggest adjustment for you moving from, up the ladder?
So I think everyone always says like the speed of the game. And for non-traditional hockey fans, they think that means like guys are skating faster, but your fastest skaters in college can pretty much skate as fast as the guys in the NHL at that point. But the rate at which you just have to be able to make decisions and the rate that guys make plays and your ability to think with very limited time and space, I think really changes every level you go up. And I think that like that's what like some of these guys at the NHL level, like you look at Connor McDavid, obviously he's a guy who skates better than everyone else, but he's also able to read the play and make decisions at that pace as well. And that's something that many guys can't do.
Yeah, I'd certainly agree with that. And, looking at, I was going through your tweets, Drew, you're pretty outspoken about hockey on there. And you wrote, spend the money to hire one of the world's best coaches like Adam Oates or Joey Hishon. I learned more from these guys in 3 years than my other 100 coaches combined. What can someone learn from a guy like Adam Oates, and why is he so highly regarded?
Well, if you look at, I know you got a lot of Winnipeg listeners here. One of the biggest Adam Oates fans in the world is Mark Scheifele, and you just kind of see the growth and development of his game over the years. But yeah, that's a tweet that I stand by, right? Like I was a suitcase during most of my career, so I got exposed to a ton of different coaches. But some of these guys are just, I think Adam, Joey Hishon, and there might be another guy or two, but these guys are just, the way they think about the game, the way that they're able to break down plays and explain it to you. Like I think there's a lot of people who have very high hockey IQs, but maybe can't teach it as well as those guys do, if that makes sense. And the ability to not only understand it, but then also be able to communicate and teach it at that level is super unique and allows those guys to kind of have the businesses that they have. And you ask so many players around the league, like almost every player on every team's working with one of those guys. And I think that, I just feel so fortunate that I got to work with them when I did. I probably worked with them a little too late in my career. My career was pretty much on the tail end when I started working with them. But from like an enjoyment standpoint and just learning the game, I just learned so much from them and I'm super grateful for it.
I always hear players say, oh, I'm just working on the little details in my game, but no one really ever expands on those details. There's something that you could point to that they showed you, maybe something like, tipping pucks or, body positioning or, putting, grabbing pucks off the wall or anything in particular.
Yeah, I would say grabbing pucks off the wall is a great example of that. If you look at a lot of Adam's clients, whether it's Scheifele or Kucherov or some of these guys, like the puck is rimmed around the wall so many times throughout an NHL game, but their ability to pick it up cleanly with their head up and then make a decision right away after that is super apparent. And I think is one of the reasons that those guys are able to have success primarily on the power play, but just also 5-on-5 and in all areas of their game. So I think that's a little bit of a cliche comment that like players make because it can mean a lot of different things. But I think that the high end players are really working on, you got guys, the best players in the game are working on picking up the puck, like hard rims on their backhand and plays pretty much every day of the off season.
I always hear guys say like working on little details. We play, scrum clips every day. I always feel like they just maybe don't want to say what they're working on. So they want to debut it in a game, but I figured to ask you to get some insight, having worked with a guy like Adam Oates. But after the NHL, you played in Europe, KHL. What was the experience like for you, and how different was it compared to North American hockey?
Yeah, it's a big jump. A lot of the rinks over there, especially when I was playing, the KHL's changed a lot of their rinks since, but we're Olympic-size ice surfaces, which I didn't necessarily love. There's definitely things that are nice about them, right? Like you have a ton of time and space, but it's also, you can play a full game and you feel like you're nowhere even close to the net. So it's like scoring chances are a lot fewer because, it's not like you can just throw a puck on net from the wall there. It's much more of a possession-like game, but both of my experiences were awesome. My first daughter was born in Zurich, Switzerland. I stayed there for my whole career, but decided to make the jump to Russia, which was, from a hockey perspective, a pretty good experience. I know people come on and say a lot of different things, but I was probably at a bad time in my life with a young daughter and a wife we were expecting another one during that time, so that made it very difficult. But I'm grateful for the experience because there's so many things that you see on a day-to-day basis that unless someone's kind of lived over there and lived through it, they can't fully understand.
Yeah, it certainly must be a pretty cool experience. And Drew, you're pretty got a lot of opinions on the current NHL, and I noticed you wrote about that the gap between stars and role players is wider than ever. How do you see that shaping the league here with the rising salary cap?
Yeah, so what I meant when I said that is I'm just going to throw out these numbers. I mean, there's no math to this, but I felt like when I entered the league in 2012, the Sidney Crosbys and the guys who are at the top of the game were maybe 15 to 25% better than most of the role players. But I think the top end guys now, that number's probably increased to 25 to 40%. So I think that the gap between the games players is greater than it's ever been. And yeah, we talk about the salary cap. The salary cap's going up, but I actually think that's going to benefit kind of I would call them, if those guys are A-plus players, kind of your A-minus players the most. Like I think your typical 30-goal scorer who's signing the 6x6 contract will now be signing 6x8. I know that this cap is going up, but a lot of those star players really want to win. And I think that that's something that a lot of people don't necessarily take into consideration, is that those guys know that there's almost so much money to go around. And a lot of those guys that made so much money, the most important thing to them is whether they believe they have a true chance to win the Stanley Cup.
And just going through, the Winnipeg Jets made big news this offseason, signing Jonathan Toews, bringing him home. And you were advocating that every team should be calling him back in May. Why do you think every team should be after him, and what do you think he could bring after taking a couple of years off and returning at in his late 30s here?
So I just thought it was a pretty low risk move for any team who really has a chance to win. And I mean, he was a guy when I was growing up who I tried to idol or like emulate his game, just because he was kind of the ultimate two-way centerman, a guy who could run your first power play, but could also be the guy out there when you're defeated at the end of the game. And I just knew kind of after taking so much time off that he wasn't going to be expecting a huge salary and his AAV was going to be pretty low. So I thought a guy like him who hasn't played in so long, worst case is he doesn't find his offensive game. He's a super reliable shutdown center who can help you play against the other team's top lines. And if best case, he finds his offensive game and then he kind of returns to somewhat of the version that he used to be. So I love the signing. I think it's super cool that he's returning to his hometown. And like I said, I was advocating any team with a chance to win should have been calling him.
Yeah, I know you watched the playoffs pretty closely last year. The Jets, a big series win, dramatic win against St. Louis, ultimately losing to Dallas. But what did you see from the Jets last season?
Yeah, I mean, like that comeback was crazy. It was one of the wilder games during all of the playoffs. But I mean, they're a team who's been right there a lot of times. And I mean, kind of similar in a sense, not necessarily from a roster standpoint or how they play to the Dallas Stars, who, I mean, I think that they get into the playoffs, but I mean, it's a tough to win. And I think that's what makes hockey playoffs so great. And I think that, I mean, their goaltender, they have one of the best goalies in the world. He's had some struggles late in the season and during the playoffs. And for them to really have a chance, I think they got to add a couple pieces and then have him on the top of his game. But I think that the addition of Jonathan Toews was a great start.
Yeah, training camps starting up. We just had prospects camps. A lot of these players are starting the AHL before going to the NHL. How beneficial can it be for a player to start in the AHL before getting ready to move up a level?
I think it's super important, and I think it's super important for maybe reasons that others don't. I think it's just, I mean, you see it with a guy like Frank Nazar. He started and played half the year in the American League, and I think it gives you just a better taste of how good you have it when you get to the NHL. So if I was running a team, I mean, obviously I'm not sending a first overall pick to the American Hockey League, but even really good prospects, even if it's for the first 2-3 weeks, just so when you do call them up, they truly appreciate how good the lifestyle and everything else is in the NHL. And I think that those guys who have a little bit of taste of it, like I said, I don't think it has to be very long. I think appreciate the NHL more, and it helps them long-term in their career.
Yeah, Frank Nazar signing a massive contract this offseason, 7-year, $46.13 million after 2 years in the league. Drew,
I think less than that, but yeah.
I think it's less than 2 full. It was Story played 3 games in 23, 24, and 53 last year. So pretty wild stuff there. And Drew, looking at your career, retiring at age 30 in 2021, was there a moment for you when you knew it was time?
It was more of a family decision for me. I spent a lot of time away from my wife and 2 kids. I felt like I definitely could have kept playing from a hockey standpoint. I certainly was kind of getting tired of signing 1-year deals and moving all over the world to play the game. And it was just something that I felt like I had a lot of unique advantages from my experience to kind of start my next business career. So I felt like it was time more from a family perspective than a hockey perspective. But the last game I actually played for Carolina against Nashville in one of the last games of the season. And I knew it was going to be probably my last game ever. So it was probably one of the only few NHL games I played where I just went out there and played completely carefree and actually had one of my best games. So it was something that was a little weird to sit with, because I think, like, looking back, if I would have played a little more carefree, I think it could have benefited me and been so uptight about the game.
How difficult is it to call yourself a suitcase for a player, going and signing 1-year deals and jumping from place to place? Maybe something that, people watching the game may not realize.
Yeah, I think the hardest thing about war in your life, especially when guys are doing it who have families and young kids, your kids start to develop friends places, they start to get comfortable in their schooling, and then all of a sudden you got to uproot them. And I think that was kind of one of the reasons I stopped playing, is just because it's like, are you willing to sacrifice kind of everyone else's happiness for your career? And I did it for a long time, but eventually just got to a point where I wasn't willing to do that anymore. So, I mean, if you're young and single, it's not that big of a deal, but when you start involving other people and making them make sacrifices as well, it can be difficult.
And moving on from hockey, you mentioned business. What made it so easy for you to walk away, and what was your next step after retiring from hockey?
So I always thought I wanted to be a GM or a president of a team. So I called a good friend of mine who's probably the best agent in hockey now, Judd Moldaver, who is running the hockey division at Wasserman. They represent a lot of the best players in the NHL today. Kyle Connor, I'm pretty sure, is a client of theirs, but anyone, Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews, and just worked with him for the first couple of years, which was amazing because he had been at it for 20 or 25 years. And the way he thinks about the business side of hockey from a player contract standpoint and even a team standpoint was super beneficial to me to learn from him. And like I said, I just couldn't have had a better introduction in the business side of the game than working with him for 3 years.
Yeah, you've also started a podcast, Betting the Limit, which focuses, why did you decide to focus on athlete transitions?
I just think because the more guys I talked to, the more guys struggled with it. And I actually built a company around this probably 1.5 years ago as well. It's called Amalfi, joinamalfi.com. But it's just like so many guys you talk to, like I was super miserable when I retired. And I thought that my retirement struggles were unique to me because I didn't have the career that I wanted to have. And I always thought I was going to play till I was 40, make 200 million, win a bunch of Stanley Cups. And that doesn't happen. So I thought I was miserable because of my career. But the more guys I talked to, whether you played in the NBA and you made 300 million or you played Division III football in college and then couldn't play again, like guys really struggled with that transition. And I thought there had to be something done about it, that instead of guys struggling for 5 to 7 years, how could we shorten that time to maybe a year or 2 years? And I think that helping guys kind of find their next passion, because your whole life you're committed to working the same way towards a goal that I don't think you're really ever going to be happy till you find what else you're passionate about. So my advice to guys all the time is like, what do you like to do? And kind of attack that with the same mentality as you attacked your career, whether that's finance, real estate, coaching, whatever it is. You need to find something that gets you out of bed every day, and you can kind of apply that athletic mindset to.
Yeah. Is that how you were able to work through some of that bitterness by finding the next thing?
Yeah, I try to just be grateful for my career. And it's weird as an athlete, right? Because when I'm 7 years old and watching the Denver Pioneers play, I would have done anything to play one game of collegiate hockey. And then I end up making the NHL and playing all over the world and having some success, but never had the success that I ultimately wanted to have. Like I said, I thought I was going to be a guy who played in the NHL for 20 years and won multiple Stanley Cups, and that doesn't happen. So when you retire, I would view my career as a failure, but you try and look at it like I was grateful for the experiences that I had. And then I was able to start my next career at 30. Whereas if I was still playing hockey, I probably wouldn't have done that until I was 40 or 45. So try to just kind of use that time to jumpstart what I was going to do next, and want to be more successful in business now than I was during my hockey career.
Yeah. Do you have any mementos or anything that you've saved over your pro hockey career?
Yeah, I had one really good game, and I actually have a puck of it behind me here. I actually don't think it's in the screen, but one of the games I was playing for Florida, we went into Pittsburgh when they were kind of at their peak of their careers, and ended up having 2 goals and an assist. And I think we won the game 5-2 or 5-3 against some of the world's best players. So for me in my career, that was probably a night where it got as good as it ever was going to get, and it was something I'll remember forever.
And Drew, before we wrap up, again, training camp starting this week, you could give advice to a young player going into their first training camp. What would it be?
I mean, this is a little bit cliche to say, but I would just say, like, you need to do whatever you can to make an impression on the people making decisions there. Like, a lot of people don't realize that most of these teams are pretty much set before training camp starts, but you want to be a guy that when they do send you to the American League, you're on one of their first few call-ups, and you need to kind of just do whatever you can to leave that impression. And I think that what a lot of guys don't realize is you need to do whatever you can to break into the NHL and become a regular, and then from there you can expand your game. I think a lot of guys kind of view themselves as like, oh, I have to be a power play guy. And if you're a power play guy and the Winnipeg Jets need a 4th line center, you should do everything you can to be that 4th line center, because at some point during their year, someone's going to get hurt and you're going to get that opportunity to be on the power play. But if you're not on the roster, that opportunity is probably not going to come. So I think that's something players should think about. And then, like I said, it's training camp shorter than ever now too. It's kind of like, I don't even know how many, I think they have 2 or 3 practice days before they kind of get into preseason games, which I think is great. Players love that. Too many days of the practice and inter squad games are a little bit weird, because you want to play hard and leave an impression, but you also are playing against your teammates. So I love the idea of kind of shortening camp and getting right into exhibition games.
Great stuff there from Drew Shore. Really appreciate him taking the time to join us today. Very fascinating to hear from him about training camp, playing in the NHL, and transitioning out of his game. If you want to hear more, check out his podcast, Betting the Limit, and give him a follow on Twitter /X at Drew22Shore. Big thanks to him for joining us and sharing his experience. It's time now. Fans First, Fans Feedback. Fans Feedback brought to you by Fans First, your best option for buying and selling tickets in Winnipeg with no fees. What you see is what you pay. Certainly the best place if you have a pair of seats to get rid of them. I can tell you, as someone who's had to buy or sell tickets on occasion, utilizing Fans First, so user-friendly. The customer service is so great. And you're selling tickets, you're getting paid the next day right after the game all summer. The Bombers games are sold out, so Fans First is a great place for that. And they're going to be busy for Jet season. Coming up, the first preseason game, Sunday already. Here's some fan feedback talking about Kyle Connor and his next contract. Chris Lev says in chat, if KC signs for 4 years, that lines up with Gabe, Scheifele, and Hellebuck to UFA. I think that's what we see. It's going to be interesting with the cap rising, what these guys entering the final year of their contract sign for. How many years does McDavid do? The 8-year or the 4-year term? Kaprizov as well. Eichel, who's the other one? Kempe, some big names up there. And yours truly says, unpopular opinion, you should trade KC if not signed by the start of the season, talking about dates when we should panic. And I think it was Ken Weeb who threw out March. If he's unsigned in March, that's the panic date. Milner says March? That's insanity. If he isn't signed by opening night, he's leaving. Milner saw what happened with Ehlers, doesn't want to go through that will they, won't they dance again. And BA Split says in chat, is the sky falling and camp isn't even open yet? Seems so for some. Let's watch. Hey, we can still speculate. I don't think anyone is saying the sky is falling, just talking about scenarios of what may or may not play out. So fan feedback brought to you by Fans First, your number one spot for buying and selling tickets by fans, for fans. with no fees. Connor Hrabchak. He's back. Connor, what's going on here? What's your panic meter here for Kyle Connor? What's your panic date at as we enter training camp? I'm sure it's going to be a big topic coming up when they hit the ice on Thursday.
Yeah, and Mike mentioned there that Kyle Connor didn't speak today, but he's going to be speaking Thursday, or at least that's what we expect as training camp gets underway, and he'll surely be requested from us in the media to speak to him. I'm with Mike. Midnight before opening night, that's my panic date for Kyle Connor. If he doesn't have a contract by then, or if there isn't clarity by then, I should say, on a contract or him not wanting to be here or anything along those lines. If there isn't clarity by opening night, I think that's a reasonable time. Again, it's not over if Kyle Connor's not signed by the beginning of the regular season, but I would mark that as kind of a panic point for me.
Something to watch going forward here. Many storylines for Winnipeg Jets training camp. As I said, we'll be there Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Connor, we haven't really touched on NFL Week 2. Biggest takeaway from the weekend. What did you learn from the games?
That Mac Jones is the future of the 49ers franchise. No, I'm kidding. I mean, good for him to get a win, but I will say that the New York Jets were maybe a mirage week 1. They played against the Pittsburgh Steelers and played them tight, and the Pittsburgh Steelers lost this weekend as well against the Seahawks. But the Jets looked absolutely terrible, to nobody's surprise, against the Buffalo Bills. The Dolphins losing again. Joe Burrow going down for the Bengals. That's a really tough one. I don't know. It wasn't a very shocking weekend for me in terms of how the games played out. There wasn't one team that really surprised me one way or the other. The Giants, I will say, keeping up in a shootout with the Dallas Cowboys and their offense was a really fun game to watch. I'll put it that way for sure. And yeah, I again, the Niners, I'm obviously watching them closely. They win despite a ton of injuries. The Colts, I think, is a team. They're a team that didn't have any real high expectations coming into the season. They're now 2-0. With Daniel Jones at the helm. And if you have Daniel Jones in fantasy, you're thinking of playing him at this point because he's just putting up such good numbers. And then maybe the Minnesota Vikings as a team that really disappointed over the weekend at home. JJ McCarthy's first start against the Falcons, another team that's looking to be a playoff team in the NFC, and only 2 field goals. That's a tough home opener for the Vikings. But we've got 2 more games tonight: Bucks, Texans, and Chargers, Raiders. What stood out to you, Remo, from Sunday?
Yeah, quarterback injuries. The story of this past week, just finding out JJ McCarthy out 2 to 4 weeks with a high ankle sprain. Justin Fields goes down for the Jets. Brock Purdy already injured for San Francisco. Joe Burrow with this toe injury. He's going to be out for a while. So quarterback injuries, the story there for me. We did have that exciting Broncos Colts finish. Daniel Jones, is he this year's Sam Darnold, the veteran quarterback who goes to a new team? He's a former high draft picks and has resurgence now that he has a good team in front of him. The Jacksonville Jaguars really blowing it to the Bengals. Trevor Lawrence, he was a high draft pick, but he seems to be a middling quarterback. And Baltimore had that really, blown game against Buffalo in week 1. To no one's surprise, came back and hammered the Browns here in week 2. You mentioned not a lot of surprises in my survivor pool. Everyone got their pick right. Can't say the same about last year in week 2, where I think I got my first strike. And how about the Detroit Lions? A lot of talk about Ben Johnson coming in against his former team. Detroit had a tough showing in week 1 against Green Bay, put up a 50-burger against Chicago. In week 2, Jared Goff looking pretty strong. Jameson Williams catching the big bomb. So exciting week 1. I do like the Monday night doubleheader. I'll be tuned in tonight. We'll see the Chargers, Justin Herbert. Can they keep it rolling against the Raiders? And as you mentioned, Bucks, Texans, CFL. I got to say that we didn't touch on the other games. Friday night, Nathan Rourke, man, this guy put on an absolute show. against Ottawa. I don't think they punted till very late in the game. We're going to see Ottawa here against the Bombers on Saturday. Will Dustin Crum start? He's been pretty amazing for fantasy, threw for 300 yards and a touchdown and ran for another 50, but that doesn't win you games. And BC, they're charging, and the Bombers were pretty lucky to face them at the beginning of the season when Rourke was hurt and finding his footing. Toronto with a crazy comeback win there against Edmonton. Do we have a quarterback controversy? It was Arbuckle got hurt and got removed when Chad Kelly says he's ready, but the Argos don't think so. And it was Montreal with a big win against Sask, and Sask has many DBs hurt, and it was McLeod Bethel Thompson passing all over them, putting up 48 points. I know you and Jeff will be doing CFL 110 tomorrow. Lots to talk about in the CFL.
Yeah, looking forward to jumping in and pinch hitting for Huss on CFL 110. That'll be an absolute blast. Me and Jeff will chop things up from last week in the CFL and look ahead to this upcoming weekend where the standings are just so tight across the league in the West and in the East that there's a lot to be desired in the last couple of weeks of the season here. So obviously here, Winnipeg Sports Talk, we're focused on the Bombers, but some good games coming up. BC traveling to Calgary this week.
Yes.
Friday night game. That'll be, I think, the game of the week, the one I'm looking forward to the most. But yeah, Montreal putting up 48 on Saskatchewan on the road. That's a really impressive win. The Argonauts, I know, Remis, you probably saw Ryan Dinwiddie's antics, let's put it, after their win. So I'm sure that's a topic that'll come up on CFL 110. I'm interested to hear what Jeff's thoughts are, because I think I have thoughts, but yeah.
It's funny. I took Nick Arbuckle in one of my lineups in fantasy, and he threw, what do you have, like, how many interceptions was it? Let me just refresh the number. I was
4?
It was 4 interceptions.
I think so.
Like, couldn't he have done that in the Grey Cup? I took him. He's been having this year where he's leading the league in yards, having such a great year. I think he got hurt and tried to play through it. But 4 interceptions for Grey Cup MVP Nick Arbuckle, and they put in Jarrett Dagey in there and led them to the win with another last-minute field goal, and so that's a big game for them in the East.
Well,
against
let me just
Montreal.
say, yeah, 100%. And let me just say, what a heartbreaker on the other side of it for Edmonton. The turnover differential in this game was 6-1. Toronto turned the ball over 6 times to Edmonton's 1, and Edmonton lost by a point. That's with where Edmonton's at in the standings and really all the good things they've done to put themselves in a position to maybe be a playoff team, which is a massive compliment to them of what they've done over the past number of years to even be in this position. To lose a game like that at this point in the season against a backup quarterback coming in and beating you with a turnover differential 6-1, that's just an absolute stinger for the Elks. So tough one for Edmonton. And Ryan Dinwiddie definitely let the Elks sideline hear about it after the win.
Yeah, so we'll be looking forward to that. We didn't get Jeff's weigh in on the MLSE partnership with the Bills. So
Right.
lots to get to. A lot of league news to get to on CFL 110. So let me give a shout out to Assiniboia Downs. Connor, live racing tonight. Continuing here in September. Downs open every day with VLTs, great dining options, free admission, free parking. And if you're planning on attending the races, make a reservation in the clubhouse dining room and enjoy the world-famous prime rib buffet. And don't forget to check them out on YouTube during live racing. Kurt, Stretch giving you their picks. Hustler and I doing our duel at the Downs. He's got the lead on me. So stay tuned and check out the live racing tonight. I do have my picks, Connor, here before. We'll get to that later. And I'll give one. We'll do the Coolbet lines first. Then we'll get to the picks. And I do want to let everyone know about a great event happening this weekend. The Gold Eyes hosting double feature movie night. They're hosting one-of-a-kind movie night at Blue Cross Park Saturday, September 20th, showing 2 classic movies, The Princess Bride at 6:15 p.m. and Raiders of the Lost Ark at 8:45 on the ballpark's giant HD video board. Gates open 5:30, you can bring blankets or lawn chairs to relax on the field or capture the view from the stands. They also feature yard games, trivia, prize raffles. Keep the fun going between films. You'll be able to get popcorn, candy, burgers, hot dogs, and soft drinks available. And, of course, adult beverages. Tickets are $10. It can be purchased now at goldeyes.com/movie. We're giving away a 4-pack of tickets to that. If you've subscribed to our newsletter, link in the description of this. You already knew about it, but winnipegsportstalk.com/contest and enter to win a 4-pack of tickets to Gold Eyes Movie Night. It's still pretty nice out there, Connor. I'm putting on shorts. It was a hot one there on Saturday. So 2 movies outside. But here, let's check out the Coolbet lines here. 2 NFL games, and we can check. I don't know if CFL is out as well.
Just futures.
Let's
just
see.
futures for CFL, but
just futures. Okay, so we got the Texans home favorites against the Bucks -2.5. Interesting. And the Chargers -3.5 road favorites against the Las Vegas Raiders. Thoughts on tonight's NFL games?
Yeah, I like the Bucks. I was really uninspired by the Houston Texans offense last week. I know they were going up against the Rams, but it seemed like CJ Stroud was dropping back to pass, and Nico Collins is their really only dynamic target. And he was being, double, triple covered at times. And then their offensive line, which is easily the weak point of their entire roster, just couldn't really hold up. So I know it's a primetime game in their home opener. They're going to be fired up, but I do like the Bucks. And then the second game is weird to me because I think the Chargers should win. And you see that represented in the Vegas line, them being 3.5-point road favorites. But there's just something about Pete Carroll and a home opener in prime time for the Raiders coming off a win in week 1 as well. Like, I think there's going to be a lot of juice there for the Raiders in that crowd. So I wouldn't mind the +166 for the Raiders tonight, which means I like both underdogs if I'm taking the Raiders. But I think the night game will be a really good one. And the Chargers beat the Chiefs last week. A lot of people just assume, so they'll beat the Raiders. I think the Raiders are better than people think. So I think that's going to be a good one.
Hey, the Chargers, they've had some time off. They're going to be ready. Justin Herbert looks pretty good with Harbaugh as coach. They've got a running game now. I'm interested to see how this game plays out. I do love the 9 p.m. Monday Night Football. They used to have some crazy color commentary teams, and I used to always zip out during that one to go buy the latest edition of EA Sports NHL, but it just comes out, digitally. Now you don't have to go to the store to buy it. Connor, you fire up the new game?
Oh, yeah. I've got the new game fired up, playing a lot of Hockey Ultimate Team. I am the kind. I've said this on the show before. I'm the type to buy the NHL games every single year. I know people dog on them and hate them and think it's the same game. I'm a big fan of the NHL games, and I play it quite a bit. So yeah, I've been fired up at NHL 26, and I like it so far. I don't know. I don't know what to say.
I got the 10-hour trial. I played one game as the Jets. I had a pretty good time with their top line. The rest of the lines, I was missing Ehlers out there. It's taking some time to get used to without that speed. This is for the game purposes. So I'll have to. Maybe I think I just need some more practice. I'm pretty washed up when it comes to EA Sports NHL series, CFL futures. This is the lowest the Bombers odds have been all season, +2,000 to win the Grey Cup. That's the third lowest odds. Connor, the Elks are moving up, +3,500. It's fine. I think they were +5,000 for a while. Red Blacks +10,000. Rough Riders still a favorite, +275. Ticats +300. Stamps +315. Owls +450. If the Lions had a defense, you'd like this +1,400 number. And the Argos, man, maybe they get some quarterback out +1,400. I feel like if you're in the East, you've got a shot here, at least making it to the game.
Yeah, I think that's why you see it represented in the odds there with the Bombers being a bit of a longer shot. I mean, if they stayed where they are right now, they'd have to go on the road to Calgary, on the road to Saskatchewan just to get to the Grey Cup. and then beat whoever's in the Grey Cup waiting for them if the standings held the way they are now. So I think that's why you see maybe BC being higher as a potential crossover team, maybe being the first ever crossover team to make the Grey Cup. I don't know if we see that this year. I feel like every year we feel like this is going to be the year that a crossover team crosses over and actually has some success. But this year you have maybe a better argument than you've ever had with the East looking as kind of open as it has been. So really interesting odds there to see the Bombers that low. Mm-hmm. But I think there's risk baked in there with Collaros, the unknown of his health, the Bombers, being 3-7 in their last 10. And as it currently stands, having really the hardest path in the CFL to the Grey Cup if the season ended today.
Yeah, I see Schnitzy in chat. He says, bet on the Bombers plus 2,000. They still have a chance with Collaros. The season isn't over yet. If he's in, they've got a chance. You worry about him, taking a hit behind that O-line. He's going to be able to get back up and continue playing. He's already left 3 games in the middle this season. We'll see him. We'll see if he's on the field at practice tomorrow. MLB pennant races continue. Blue Jays, they are traveling to Tampa to take on the Rays. Minus 130. So they're favored there. And a number of games on Coolbet, your spot for betting. Check out the exclusives. I'm sure there's got a lot of great stuff cooked up here for the NFL tonight. Blue Jays NFL daily exclusives. I know Hustler wants to hit this field goal prop. Combined field goals in both Monday night games. What is it? 8+ is at minus 118, 9+ plus 175. That's his thing, betting on the field goals. Now let's check out the horse picks. Go on. I got some picks tonight, trying to catch up to Huss. He's gonna have to add in some additional wagers when he gets back. As I bring up the screen with the picks, hpibet.com. Here, that's not the one. That's this. Here we go. I got race 3, 4, 6, 7. Race 3, I am on $4 Diamond Concerto as I switch off Woodbine. Race 3, $4 on Diamond Concerto to win. That's a bit of a longer shot. I think that's paying 8-1. We'll see. It's a longer shot. Race 4, $2 exacta box, 2-5. Bila Soul and Lieutenant Norm. Lieutenant Norm, that's the favorite there. Race 6, I got a $3 exacta box, 6-7. Colonel Clink and Orcadian Storm. And race 7, a $1 trifecta box, 4-5. Sharp Likeness, Math Mystery, and Berea. Connor, as we wind it down, we got to do some jersey.
We do.
With jersey reviews here. A couple jerseys announced today. Everyone getting ready for the regular season, announcing their new looks. The Washington Capitals coming out with this one. Check out, this is their new jersey. The Screaming Eagle. The original one was blue and white. They had it on the black. Now they're putting on their traditional red Capitals colors. I like this jersey. I think this is a win. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Screaming Eagle, bright red, Capitals. I think a jersey like this is eventually going to be their primary. I think, I think they're kind of soft launching this, eventually being their main home jersey. The only thing I love this jersey. The only issue I have with it is right on the forearm when it is navy. I just feel like it should be red. The main color of everything is red, and I'd like to see just the red continue through the navy and just have the stripes on the arms, and then have it red as it is everywhere else. Like the bottom stripe in the torso area is red. I don't know why it ends with navy in the forearm area, but I like the jersey otherwise.
Good looking jersey here.
Yeah,
I think this is a win for the Capitals and the Detroit Red Wings.
These are
celebrating their
money.
100th anniversary. Schnitzy in the chat asking if we're on drugs for liking that one, but they had announced here. You sent it to me on DM. The Centennial jersey. I think this is a winner. Red,
absolute
white
win.
Stripes. You pointed out the captain patch is like an old school like leather patch.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really care about this, but on the inside of the collar it says Hockeytown, and every year they won the cup. Like that's not a selling factor for me when I'm wearing the jersey. What's written on the inside, but it's a nice detail. Sure, they've got the Stadium Series, Heritage Classic, number font on this. This jersey looks very nice. Certainly a winner. Detail on the crest. I think this is a big win for the Red Wings.
Now people in chat are disagreeing with us, but I think this is awesome. I love this jersey. I could see like maybe you don't like the stripes and like the too many stripes, but the leather captain's patch, they're going to be wearing leather gloves. It's supposed to be like a retro vintage throwback 100th season jersey. The changes to the logo, making it a little bit more sparkly. I love. It's simple. It's, they're not, it's their 100th season. They're not coming out with some brand new jersey. It pays homage to the jerseys that they've worn over many, many years. That hasn't really changed much either. I love it. I think it's sick. I think they're going to be, they announced that they're wearing it in their home opener, their opening night. And I think it looks amazing. So I'm a big fan of these jerseys, even though people in chat are disagreeing. They're not, there's not a consensus, I don't think.
I'm surprised. That's what the regular Red Wings jersey is, red and white. It's simple. It's timeless.
Yeah, exactly.
They haven't changed it forever, so I liked it. I'm here to critique jerseys. Fun thing to do at the end of the show. Connor, thanks for coming on. Great talking with you. Talk a little NFL, CFL, of course, Bombers and Jets. As always, we'll be back tomorrow reacting to the Bombers practice. We'll have some big burning questions leading into Jets training camp. Jamie Thomas will hop on. He was just at development camp. Brandon Ruicki makes his return. And looking ahead to, big week here. Hockey, it's back, Connor. So thank you so much for coming on. Of course, you'll be hosting CFL 110 with Jeff after the main show.
Yes, CFL 110 tomorrow. Main show tomorrow I'll be on. WST Bombers Report came out this morning. WST Sunday Live came out Sunday morning. Training camp this week. It's an awesome time, and Winnipeg Sports Talk, we're going to have you covered with everything here. So we'll even have to maybe make a WST ESHL team or something, Remis, for NHL 26. We got a lot of we're in chat. A lot of people are asking about Ultimate Team and ESHL, so we'll maybe have to get that going. But lots of stuff happening here at WST.
Yeah, I've never played with you. Maybe one night we'll fire it up. So if you are here, you've enjoyed the show, lasted this long, help us out. Hit the thumbs up button. Subscribe to our channel. We just hit 13,500 on YouTube. We hit 7,500 on Instagram. All the links to all of our social medias you can keep up to date down below in the description on YouTube or on the podcast. There's a description on the podcast as well. And if you haven't yet, sign up for the mailing list. A lot of info. The ticket pack, it's coming. We're going to announce that hopefully very soon. Poker nights around the corner, and first run a contest. And we do send out the newsletter detailing all the great segments to come out. I know people can't listen every day. Maybe there's something you missed. We will let you know. So for Connor Hrabchak, I'm Michael Remis, and Hustler, who's away. He'll be back later this week. This has been another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye-bye.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.